We're going to begin our April 6th Board of Supervisors meeting with the salute to the flag, please.
This is the Falls Township Governmental Access Channel on Comcast 22 and Verizon Channel 40. You're about to view the Falls Township Board of Supervisor meeting for Tuesday, April 6, 2010. This program was pre-recorded earlier for playback at this time.
Thank you. All right, Mrs. Pullen, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Zopka?
Here.
Mrs. Wisłowski?
Here.
Mr. Harvey?
Here.
Mr. Dents?
Here.
Mr. Snipes?
Here.
Okay. Good evening. We've full house tonight for good reason. The first item on our agenda is always one it's a pleasure to be a part of, just as witnesses, really. Every year, our police department goes through the very, I think, necessary and important duty of recognizing some of its own who have gone above and beyond, and people in our community who have gone above and beyond to make us the very safe and I think noteworthy township that we are. We have, we'll be a little biased, I guess, and say that the best police department certainly in the county, accredited now several times over, which is something that not a lot of other police departments across the state can claim, and it has a lot to do, obviously, with the leadership and with the people that we have in uniform.
They're the best in Pennsylvania, Mr. Harvey.
At this point, I'll turn the microphone over and the program over to Chief Wilcox.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you for having us here this evening. We have several people today that we'd like to honor. We also have members from the community. And finally, we have two boys that were instrumental in soliciting donations for our canine. Would the members of the board like to come down?
Certainly.
And when
Sure.
the officers come up?
Am I allowed to say hello to Faith?
Yes.
Hi, honey.
How you doing?
Good to see you.
You
I'm
too.
glad they brought you.
Every once in a while, they let me out.
hide you in the back room, and I don't know why, because you're beautiful.
Thank you.
Would Officer Fisher, Gold, and Pino come up front, please?
Turn it on.
Members of the board, members of the community, this evening we'd like to honor these three officers here who were instrumental. On April 23rd, 2009, they received a call to go to BJ's warehouse. Along with two employees, they were instrumental in bringing back an individual that was in full-blown cardiac arrest. As a result of their efforts, the gentleman is with us today. He lives in lives in Vermillion Hills. Unfortunately, couldn't be here this evening. He just got out of the hospital, but he'd like to tell you three gentlemen that he is very appreciative for everything, and he wants to tell you God bless you. As a result of that, they're receiving their life-saving awards tonight. Would Officer Ed Elmore come up front, please? This evening, members of the board, members of the community, we're honoring Officer Edward Elmore together with Jeff Omler. Unfortunately, Jeff Omler couldn't be here this evening. On June 5th, 2009, we received a phone call from the Ocean Township, New Jersey Police Department inquiring about a subject that resides in our township that was involved in a shooting at a gas station earlier in their jurisdiction. As a result of the efforts on both these officers, they located the subject, took him into custody, and recovered a shotgun and several rifles. Your dedicated service resulted in clearing the case for the Ocean Township, New Jersey Police Department. Thanks, Ed. I don't see Officer Langen here together with Tag, but Officer Kratz is here. Officer Kratz, would you come up front, please? once again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, members of the community, on May 24th, 2009, Officer Kratz and Langen, together with his partner, K9 Tag, these officers were able to arrest 3 individuals who had earlier committed a burglary within our township. The actions by all 3 officers demonstrated superior police work. Must also be noted that during the arrest, that Officer Tag, K9 Tag, was impaled on a fence and was able to free himself and continue the search, which resulted in Officer Kratz and Officer Langen making the arrest. Sergeant James Jones, Corporal John Martin, Detective Kathy Kopman, and Officer Howard Shook, come up front, please. Members of the board, members of the community, on 12/15, it'll almost be 2 years, but unfortunately it got caught in between our wards. As a result of their actions on December 15th, together with fellow officers, they were able to effect an arrest of a subject who was involved in a kidnapping of 2 individuals in our township. Subsequently, the subject was convicted on all the charges in this case. This was recommended by Chief McPherson. He was there on scene, and he wanted to relay his congratulations to everybody and tell them that as a result of this was superior police work on that night. And he did a great job, and nobody was injured, and the boys were brought to safety. Thanks, John. Is Mr. Reynolds here this evening? Members of the board, members of the community, we wanted to recognize this evening Mr. Reynolds from the K9 Academy. He was kind enough to donate a bulletproof vest for Officer Langen's dog. Unfortunately, I don't see him here this evening, but we'll make sure he gets a certificate. Members of the board, Officer Small, would you step up front, please? Officer Small, as you know, was deployed, and he would like to recognize the board and the community and thank them for everything that they did this evening. Either or.
Let's not get them together.
Okay.
Normally, I wear that uniform with Badge 85 pinned to it. Tonight, my guys is Staff Sergeant Small with Charlie Company, 1st Battalion, 114th Infantry, which is headquartered in Burlington. It's a New Jersey Army National Guard outfit. On June of 2008, after about 4 months of preparation, we went up deploying to the combat zone in Iraq. One of the things we do when we demobilize coming home is there's an organization called the National Committee for Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve, which gives us the opportunity to recognize people who basically, use cop language, do the right thing as far as their employers, or I should say their employees. In the past, I've had ESGR send out patriotic employer certificates to, I believe, E.D. Miller over in Finance. I had one for the department in general. This time, since I'm now at the 20-year point and I'm looking at retirement, this was kind of my last hurrah, so I wanted to make sure that as many people as possible got recognized. So, in short, I nominated for Patriotic Employer Awards Chief Wilcox. I also had one written up for the Police Association of Falls Township. I should have just said PAFT. Basically because without the support of my brother and sister officers, being deployed away from home would have been extremely difficult. I also nominated and got one for Hank and Sue Ward, simply for the fact that while Corporal Ward at the time wasn't my supervisor, he and his wife extended themselves personally to my family. They socialized together. Hank or Sue were always available if my wife had to make a phone call. So is Chief Wilcox. But in general, I simply wanted people to know that being an officer in Falls Township made being deployed, because of the way the township, my chain of command, and my brother and sister officers, their attitude about me being a service member, relieved a lot of the burdens. I deployed with a lot of different guys who had a lot of different jobs, and when I told them about the things that were being done for me while I was away, basically the reaction was, is there a job opening? Can I move there? So, just as a representative of the department in general, I'll read Chief Wilcox's citation in particular. As a senior law enforcement officer in the township, Chief Wilcox has not only been a supportive supervisor, but also extended his personal friendship to myself and my family. He's extended to me every consideration, courtesy, and accommodating my service as an Army Guardsman. Despite the fact that my absence places special burdens on his operation at the department, he's not wavered in his support of me or my family and has shown special attention to the concerns of my wife and family. His support and assistance made it possible for me to complete my military obligations. That goes essentially for everybody involved in the township and the department. But just as make you the recipient.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg, but this really goes to the Board of Supervisors, too.
Is he coming back? Are you coming back?
I'm sorry, ma'am?
You're back in Falls now?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I've been back for a year.
Thank you.
And I'm not leaving anymore. I'm done.
We have two more things on the agenda. Officer Trindle, could you come up, please? Members of the board, members of the community, I received 2 letters during the past year. One from the Terrorist Screening Center in Washington, D.C. It says, Dear Chief Wilcox, on behalf of the Terrorist Screening Center, please accept this letter of commendation for Officer John Trindle of your police department. On March 8, 2009, Officer Trindle conducted a traffic stop which involved an individual who preliminarily matched a lookout on TCS's watch list. According to NCIC protocol, Officer Trindle contacted TSC and provided information which allowed TSC screeners to positively match the encountered individual to a known suspected terrorist group on the watch list. The professional handling of this encounter by Officer Trindle provided the TSC with information that may prove valuable to the Federal Bureau of Investigation and overall to the intelligence community. In closing, I want to thank you for leading the department in actively protecting our nation. It can be further, if we can be further assistance, contact such and such. That's one letter received about Officer Trindle. Another one is on behalf of the Middletown Township Police Department. It says, Dear Chief Wilcox, on behalf of the officers of the Middletown Township Police Department, I would like to commend Officer John Trindle for his assistance in the investigation and successful prosecution of the person responsible for the tragic death of his officer Chris Jones. Because of Officer Trindle's outstanding teamwork with the Bucks County District Attorney's Office, the subject was brought to trial and found guilty of 15 charges. The success could not have been achieved without Officer Trindle's expertise in accident reconstruction. He is to be commended for his professionalism, competency, and tenacity during the investigation and prosecution of this case. Please convey our gratitude to Officer Trindle for a job well done. I must note that Officer Trindle does this throughout the whole state, and he's recognized as an expert. He's second to none. We're very fortunate to have him here. Also, David and Angelo, could you come up here, please? Members of the board, members of the community, Congressman Murphy, I want to thank you boys both. What the boys have taken it upon themselves, they went out and they sold water to raise money for our canine units. They did this for quite a while and raised money, and they wanted to give it to the Board of Supervisors. Boys? Congressman Murphy, would you like to step up here, please? Members of the board, members of the community, Congressman Murphy wanted to recognize our officers here this evening, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Chief. Thanks so much.
Go right ahead.
Great. To the Board of Supervisors, thank you so much for having me, Mr. Chairman and the rest of the board. We appreciate it. Gentlemen, I just wanted to say thank you so much for what you do every single day for our community, to keep our community safe. I have citations here from the Congress of the United States, but I just want to thank you and all the members of our community who are recognizing you here tonight for the valuable service that you give to our community every single day. The reality of it is that you answer all the calls, no matter what they are, and you never know what's at stake. But you always devote yourselves to selfless service to keep us all safe and to keep our community safe. And with that, we have eternal gratitude. I will tell you that growing up as a son of a police officer for 22 years, I'll never forget my mom sitting there at the kitchen table at night with the police scanner to listen on the calls where my dad was responding to. And that lump in her heart, never knowing if that was the last time she kissed my father goodbye that day. And yet you take that risk on behalf of all of us every day. And no words or no citation could express to you the gratitude that we all feel for your service. And we have specific awards tonight. Chief, did you want me to go into the specific ones, or do you already have?
We gave out the specific ones. What
Okay.
you want to do, Congressman?
Okay. Well, obviously, that if I could just real quick, if I could just have Officer Brian Fisher, Officer David Gold, and Officer Nicholas Pinto come up. Obviously, you know, on April 23rd of last year, you responded to BJ Wholesalers, and your response literally saved a life. And I just wanted to give you these three awards and to say thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Is that okay? So, nope. Obviously, Officer Edward Jones and Officer Jeffrey Allmore, obviously for meritorious service for what you did on June 5th, 2009, when you received a phone call from Ocean Township, New Jersey. You responded and you were able to take someone off the street that had weapons that kept our community safe. So if I can have Officer Elmore and Officer Elmore. So Elmore, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Is your partner here or no? Can I give this to you for him? Thank you very much. We appreciate it. God bless you. Officer Stephen Langan and Officer Richard Krotz, unit citation for as a result of the actions of Officer Krotz, Langan, and a canine tag on May 24, 2009. You were able to arrest 3 individuals who had earlier committed burglary within our township. And obviously the actions that you 3 committed kept us all safe, and we do appreciate everything that you've done. So, thank you. Sergeant James Jones III, Corporal John Martin, Detective Catherine Kaufman, and Officer Edward Howard Shook. As a result of your actions on December 15, 2008, together with your fellow officers, you were able to effect an arrest of a subject who was involved in a kidnapping of 2 individuals within our township. Subsequently, that suspect was convicted of all crimes, and we can't thank you enough for your service to our community. Thank you. And last but not least, is that it? Mr. Reynolds is not here. Mr. Reynolds is not here? Okay, well, we did want to recognize William Reynolds and the Reynolds Canine Academy for the Citizens Award because of your generous donation of the flak vest, of the bulletproof vest. So thank you all so much, and God bless all of our officers and all those who defend our community, and that's all first responders, including police officers, our firefighters, and our EMTs. There's no doubt in all of our minds how grateful we all are. And I will tell you, as someone who has that great honor of representing you down in Washington, D.C., we are one step closer to passing what's called the Danny Faulkner bill. Danny Faulkner, as you all know, was a police officer in Philadelphia. My father served with him. He was murdered in the line of duty. And what this bill does says that if you give your life, that on behalf of our community, for our country, that first responder, whether you're a cop, firefighter, or first responder and EMT, that your children would get a federal scholarship automatically with no questions asked. And that's the least our country can do for you. God bless all of you, and thank you so much.
Members of the board, I'd like to thank you again for your continued support. You're there for us all the time, and we truly, truly appreciate it. If you'd like to take a short intermission, we have food and beverages. If everybody, you're certainly welcome to come over. Okay. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Did you ever learn to like women yet?
Big night at the Red Robin.
We'll call our meeting back to order here. I want to thank Chief Wilcox and all of the officers who took part in reviewing the different situations, the different officers who were nominated for acts of bravery over the past year or so. A lot of work goes into this, taking these nominations, reviewing them, determining appropriate awards, and then obviously coordinating this event and all the certificates that go with it. And also thank Congressman Murphy for his presence here this evening again. I think he did it last year too. To help honor the people who have, helped keep the community safe. We're going to move ahead with our agenda here. The next item on our agenda is to consider purchase of a traffic analyzer package for the police department. Mr. Gray.
Yes, thank you. The police department requests the board to consider the purchase of a traffic analyzer package from Decatur Electrics for $1,700 plus $45 shipping. It will enable the officers to receive information concerning speeds, times, and certain days where infractions are occurring in designated areas. The board is asked to consider this purchase. In addition, Sergeant Don Airy is here to answer any additional questions the board may have.
Okay. All right. Any comments or questions for Sergeant Airy at this time?
Yes.
Sergeant?
I see where it tracks the speed with a radar, but I don't see where the camera goes that can take the picture of the license plate of the offender.
It doesn't do that. It does not have a camera. There's a it's a utility box. It's nondescript. It does not take pictures of license plates, but all it does is gather speed evidence. It can tell you how many vehicles came down the road, the speeds of the vehicles, what time the vehicles came down the road, but it can't tell you what individual vehicle came down the road at any given time.
Well, Sergeant, I wholeheartedly support this, but I'd even support more we get a couple with the cameras on them and use them.
I don't know that they're out there, portable ones anyway, at this point.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions for Sergeant Airy?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if you could just give us a quick explanation for those who don't know how this works and why we need it.
All right, Speed Spy, like was said, is it's a nondescript speed gathering device. It looks like a utility box. It's portable. It can be taken from a pole. It can be taken and put onto a pole. It can be used on our speed trailer that we have at this point. It's approximately 14 inches by 10 inches. Has a battery life of 2 days once the battery's charged, so you can leave it out there for a couple of days. And what happens, we'll go out after that period of time and we'll gather take the box off the pole, and then we can gather the evidence. We can download it onto a computer, and we can do an analysis of the traffic patterns in that area.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Dents?
And it is fully portable, you said, so you can move it from wherever you want in the township.
Yes, you can.
That's all.
Okay. Thank you, Sergeant Airy, for that. We, the Board of Supervisors has started looking at the issues of speeding. We've obviously one of the most constant complaints we get from residents, all of us, I believe, is about speeding on different roads. And obviously, I've stated before, the only sure way to prevent speeding is to, put an officer on every mile of road in the township. But we have approximately 82 or 83 miles of road in this township, so it's not exactly something we can do. But this is certainly a step we can take, and it's one of the sort of a preliminary step we can take. If we have people who complain about a road where there's speeding happening, where they think that there's an excess amount of traffic, there's an excess of speed, this is certainly a step the police officers can take. In addition to doing patrols in that area, they can put one of these boxes in there and really get some hard data on how fast people are going, how much above the speed limit. In many cases, what we've found, and we've done this with our traffic engineers, is that the speeds that people think the cars are going aren't really, matching that. The cars are going above the speed limit, but not so much faster as people usually think they are. But still, it's evidence that we can use to increase our enforcement and make the roads safer. All right, so we're looking at this traffic analyzer package for the police department. $1,700 plus $45 shipping. For a total, obviously, $1,745. Is there any public comment needed? See no hands for public comment. All right, is there a motion then from someone on the board?
I'll make a motion to buy the, to authorize the purchase of the traffic analyzer package for $1,745.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zupka?
Yes.
Mrs. Wisłowski?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dent?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Sergeant. All right, second item on our agenda tonight is a preliminary land development plan for the Mill Creek Inn, which is located on Mill Creek Road. Mr. Gray?
Yes, as mentioned, this is a preliminary plan review for the Mill Creek Inn on Mill Creek Road, tax map parcel 13-40-21 and 13-40-23. Tonight, representing the applicant is Doug Maloney.
And Mr. Maloney, just so you know, that second microphone on the table there is live, so you can, for you and Mr. Dumack to use.
Great. Thank you. As Mr. Gray advised, my name is Doug Maloney, and I'm representing the applicant, Joe Basol, who's the owner of the Mill Creek Inn. This application involves certain improvements that Mr. Basol is proposing to make to the Mill Creek Inn. Those improvements include two small additions totaling about 1,260 square feet to the first floor of the inn itself. And other improvements include completely redoing the septic field that's way out of date and will provide for much better treatment of the sewage associated with the facility. Will allow us to install stormwater facilities, which will be underground, and they're located underneath one of the parking fields that we're going to be building. It will allow us to make parking improvements. If you've been to the Mill Creek Inn, you'll notice that the parking is somewhat sloppy or scattershot throughout the site. You'll see that we're going to have some very well-defined parking areas. It will allow us to pull one parking field away from Mill Creek Road. Right now it's immediately adjacent to Mill Creek Road, and there's a very large driveway entrance that we're going to be closing off, that you sort of just drive right into this parking area. That's going to be closed off. We're going to have two well-defined driveway entrances that we think will provide for much better traffic circulation. And essentially, this is going to the entire parking area and drive areas are going to be repaved. If you've been there, you'll notice that the paving is in pretty bad shape. So it's going to completely redress up this site, and Mr. Basol is very excited about the prospect of making these improvements. In order to accommodate these improvements, and you have the plans in front of you, we need a total of 6 waivers that are set forth in the resolution. We've looked at the resolution and it's acceptable. It includes anything that's not a waiver is a will comply that's in the resolution, and the resolution accurately reflects the latest review letters from Mr. Sullivan's office. I can go over the 6 waiver requests very briefly, and I have Heath Dumack present, who can also answer any of your questions with regard to any of the engineering on the site. We have Mr. Basol is present if you have any questions, and his operations manager, Mike Brett, is here as well. The 6 waiver requests involve, the first one is from the Saldo, Section 37B, which requires 15 feet of separation between the a parking stall and the building wall. These are existing features. And Heath, would you point out for the board where we're talking about having the waivers?
Sure, absolutely. In this instance, microphone. Good evening. They get turned on. Yep.
Good evening. The area in question for waiver of Section 37B is this area in here, directly east of the existing Mill Creek Inn. Currently, the parking goes right up to the building. What we're proposing is a sidewalk and curbing, pulling the parking areas away from the building to make it a little more accessible for pedestrian use. The main entrance, there's going to be a reconfigured entrance in the front, and we're also going to have ADA access ramps and sidewalks for the handicapped use.
The next waiver is from Section 39G of the Saldo, and that's a waiver from the requirement to have sidewalks along Mill Creek Road. There are none at adjoining properties, and I think that we probably all agree that that area of Mill Creek Road is probably not an area where you want to encourage pedestrian traffic. The next waiver request is from Saldo, Section 52.1B1, which involves disturbance of FEMA floodplain. The area of disturbance is less than 1% of the FEMA floodplain on the area. Most of that 1% is within the septic field that has to be regraded. And I think there are a couple of other very small areas. Heath?
Sure. The proposed septic field right now is located in this region in here. The elevation, the FEMA flood elevation is 24. That contour runs about 2/3 of the way across this proposed field. It's the only place at this point on the site within a reasonable proximity of the restaurant and other uses that is viable for septic infiltration. The other 2 regions, which are very nominal, are roughly 1 parking space in this parking area here, and I believe 1 parking space in this area here.
The next waiver request involves steep slopes. We're allowed to disturb 30% of steep slopes on site. We're showing nominally that we are disturbing 38%. The reason that that percentage is so high, frankly, is because Mr. Basal owns, I believe, about 40 acres on 2 lots. We have only surveyed the steep slopes in the area in which this development is taking place. There are other steep slopes that, frankly, we just have not surveyed, so they're not calculated into that. If we had surveyed all of those, in all likelihood, we wouldn't need this waiver. However, the steep slopes that we're talking, is that correct, Heath?
That is correct, yes. We only surveyed about 2 acres of the entire 40.
The steep slopes that we're talking about are man-made berms adjacent to Mill Creek Road that were put in, I think, 50 years ago or so, in order to shield Mill Creek Road from the lake behind it. In order for us to increase the parking and, frankly, to improve the parking field, we have to dig into this area of man-made steep slopes, and that's the area of disturbance. And it doesn't serve, I don't believe it serves any natural function as far as stormwater management or anything of that nature. I don't think there's any drawback to disturbing these steep slopes. Heath, did I get that right? And have you?
Yes, you did.
All right. And have you pointed out to the board the area of the steep slopes?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, couldn't see what you... Sorry. That's all right. And the last, I'm sorry, the fifth waiver request is from Section 60 of the Saldo, which requires monuments to be put in place. We are installing some monuments, but there are some that are in the waterway, and also because this entire site is 40 acres, we're not proposing to remonument or reset all of the monuments throughout the entire site. We're only putting in monuments in the area in which we're developing, in the area immediately around the inn.
That number's 9 monuments that we're proposing to set.
And finally, we are proposing a waiver from Saldo Section 62B, which requires curbing along the frontage, we're proposing along the eastern driveway only, and that will help us define that area, and that's the only area along the frontage that we're proposing to curb, because right now, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, there's a very large driveway entrance there. There is also a telephone pole and I believe a signpost. We're trying to keep traffic away from, obviously, from those features and get the traffic within the very well-defined driveway entrance. So that's what we're proposing to curb. There are no other curbs along Mill Creek Drive. I think that summarized the waiver requests. Did I get them all, Heath?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. We'll see if board members have comments or questions at this time. Mr. Zipka?
I've looked this over, and I like the idea of what is going, I'll say dress up the area. It's long needed, but I have a lot of trouble with everybody coming in with waivers, and actually the three I would say would be my biggest problem, and unless we do something about it, I won't support it. Is you know, the floodplain, the berms, as you said, or you know the steepness of it, and actually I want to make sure the property is marked properly with the concrete monuments, and there has to be some way around the water. We might not need all of them, but as you mentioned, at the one corner, it's underwater, but it has to be a way. But the sidewalks, I understand there isn't anything else in that area, but those three that I just mentioned is as much as I want to see this go forward, I have a problem with those three.
For the, I might be able to clarify at least a little bit with respect to the flood zone. The primary impact is the septic field or septic area, which, based on what we're doing, is not a sand mound per se, which would elevate the existing grades above flood elevation. The intent is that when all is said and done, it's being disturbed, but it will be put back to its original grade. You can't, the way the septic systems work, we can't elevate the system. I don't believe that's what's being proposed here. So realistically, from a floodplain disturbance, when all is said and done, we're probably looking at roughly 300 to 400 square foot of disturbance in comparison to this large area when everything has been finalized and graded out.
The issue, even with the way you explained it, I would think, or I would worry about, I know we've had an extra above ordinary amount of rain recently, but with that being say a septic field, having the ground really get saturated, having it actually start percolating back up from the water that's going into the ground. It's not exactly the same example, but the new intersection on Trenton Road was supposed to be done, and all the drainage was supposed to be done, and that's been flooded and closed down already there, and I'll say I am sensitive to some of the neighbors, not necessarily in your area, but just with what has happened with some of the flooding, that everybody says it's the 100-year flood or the 50-year rainstorm. It's never going to happen, but frankly, I appreciate your explanation, but I still have an issue with it. Thank you.
Just so we're clear, we didn't get any relief from stormwater management facilities, and we didn't get any relief from impervious surface either. So we're well within, very often they're the big stormwater issues, and we're well within the ordinance requirements on both of those. And I think if we didn't make it clear that the largest area of floodplain disturbance is going to be exactly the same and will function as a floodplain when we're done with it. It's just that it's going to be disturbed during the term of construction. So there's not going to be any permanent improvements there.
Thank you.
And with respect to the steep slopes, we can't put the one parking field in along the western side of the building without disturbing that steep slope. So we appreciate the concern for steep slopes. I think that concern is really well placed with regard to natural steep slopes that have, in which there are drainage patterns that have been developed over the years based on the steep slopes. In this case, it's simply a man-made, somebody put a lot of dirt there 50 years ago just to sort of shield Milk Creek, I think, from the waterway behind it. So it really doesn't serve any drainage function at all, and that's, we just can't accommodate the parking without disturbing that area.
Thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Kozlowski, comments or questions?
I'll make my comments when they call for the vote. Mr. Maloney, you know where I'm going with this. Please explain to your client after the meeting.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Snipes?
Could you describe the functioning of the septic system? What kind of system is it?
Sure. It is, in essence, a standard. It's not a sand mound per se. The whole system, I believe, is gravity fed. From grade, you go down approximately a foot. So you'll have a foot of soil on top of a system. It would be a series of interconnected or networked perforated PVC pipes in a bed of gravel or sand, and that's pretty much all she wrote. The system itself is designed to allow the effluent, which has gone through the septic tank, to be infiltrated into the ground, and then based on standard what would the term be? I apologize. Like bioremediation, in essence, the material itself is allowed to decompose in that region. There is an existing, the way the current septic field works is you basically have two cess pits currently on the site, which do very little. Every several months, the system itself is pumped out,
right.
But this is heads and shoulders. I apologize. You can see on this plan, which is the grading plan, much more clearly where the proposed septic field location is, and you can also see how large it is in order to comply, to bring everything up to speed from what's there now. What's there now is working. However, you're looking at a septic field that, in essence, is larger than the existing bar with the proposed additions.
Mr. Sullivan, do you have any concerns about, excuse me, the disturbance of the this 1%, as they're saying, disturbance of the floodplain area? They say they're going to be, the grade will be returned. I guess the disturbances for this construction going to be put back. Do you have a concern about water in the area?
Well, the disturbance of the floodplain is not a problem. It doesn't change the elevation of the flood. There's no change to the actual elevation of the area once they're done. I mean, during the course of construction, there'll be a disturbance of the area, but it's not going to change the floodplain in any way.
Also, the question of the berm. Obviously, the berm put in to protect the street at some point. Do you have a concern, having studied the water in the area, the movement of the water, that puts the street in any danger, or do you have a comment on that?
I assume the berm is outside the floodplain?
100%.
Yeah. So there would be no impact on the street by moving any earth around that berm or removing it in total.
You don't see any, I mean, I don't have any calculations of the 100-year storm or the 50-year storm in front of me, so I don't know if there's any calculation that those berms are needed at that point.
No. The intent for those berms, based on what we've seen of the property, is purely when it was that lake at one point was an active quarry of some sort for sand or gravel, and that berm was probably put up to mask or shield the quarry operations. Realistically, the berm itself makes up about half of this easterly parking field. The remainder of it is actually existing stone and paving, which is the driveway, the widened driveway that we're actually looking to throttle back to try and control so that we don't have, in essence, 80 feet of driveway entrance. We're cutting it back to the 24 plus the radii of the curb returns.
Partly raising the water issues because I was just reading information that the torrential rains we've been having in the past couple years and heavy snowfall is in line with computer models around global warming and the effects on this particular area, the northeast of the U.S. So it could be that we are looking for wetter and wetter weather. We certainly, as a farmer, I know the past couple years we've had nothing but wet weather. So I just raised those concerns, but I'm hearing from Mr. Sullivan that this property doesn't seem like it's, you know, that after this construction is finished, it's not going to be substantially changed, that it should change the flow of the water or danger of flooding.
And most of the property that's been developed is outside the floodplain area.
Right.
So.
Okay, I have other questions, but maybe other board members do too, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Dents?
My concern is the lack of curbs and sidewalks, especially across the front of the property, and at least between the two driveways. I mean, you're putting parking around the back and the front.
I apologize, you're talking from this driveway entrance to this entrance?
Yes.
Yes. Especially looking at traffic planning designs comments, number 12, talking about cars speeding coming onto Mill Creek from Old Bristol Pike, I guess it was. If you look at their...
No, I know. I'm actually trying to picture that speeding intersection realistically. I've been down there on a number of occasions. Most of the traffic, forgive me, maybe I'm interpreting his letter differently, but the concern that I would think is having is that cars come through here, basically blow through the stop sign and keep right on going.
No, he's talking about them turning left.
He's talking about cars coming from the other way onto Mill Creek, speeding until they reach the,
right.
They see the speed limit sign. He's concerned about cars entering and exiting the driveway.
Isn't that street a dead-end street?
No. It dead ends, but there's cars coming onto it from Old Bristol Pike, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I thought Old Bristol Pike dead end, and I apologize, I thought Old Bristol Pike dead ends basically at Atlantic Concrete.
You can turn on from Old Bristol Pike.
Both ways. Especially with the two driveways and the parking in the front, parking in the side, or the rear, parking on the side. I guess that would be west, that parking lot there?
We were talking at these two spaces here?
Or the eastern side?
That's east, right?
No, that is west.
You're calling that west. Okay, then the east parking lot, and then you have parking on the west side like you just pointed to.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing, no sidewalk there connecting them to the front of the building, really.
Well, I can alleviate some of the concern. These two spaces here are intended to service the existing house that is a rental unit. So realistically, these two spaces wouldn't be coming across to go to the bar. The remainder...
Unless you're coming from the back parking lot. I see what you're saying.
We could, I'll tell you what, realistically, and I apologize, Joe, if I'm overstepping my bounds, we could put a sign at those two spots to simply say, reserved for residential use. And that would guarantee, there's no guarantees in life, but at least then, theoretically, someone who's inebriated may try to park there, but realistically, if they're coming to the bar, they wouldn't.
If they're drunk, they
Yeah,
won't
you
be
can't.
able-
Yeah, I wouldn't go further.
Hopefully they don't make it to their car then.
Sober people don't read right.
And we may not have touched on this, but there is going to be internal curbing provided throughout the site to help define the parking fields and the drive aisles.
But not on Mill Creek Road.
But not on the road.
The
right.
intent is simply along the frontage itself that we would not be. This area in here, we would also not be because it would impact the grading for the septic field. And this area in here, because the client utilizes the two garages to the west of the access drive. However, the remainder of the site, with the exception of this small grass strip, would be curbed. So all the internal curbs. And the reason for this grass strip not to be curbed is that we have a sheet flow condition to stormwater system to bring the water into our proposed ballast pit.
Well, they're my only questions and concerns.
Okay. Yeah, I actually had the similar concerns with the waivers regarding sidewalk and curb. And just really to quote you, Mr. Dumack, you talking about putting the sidewalk on the eastern side of the building there, the bar, and saying you're putting the sidewalk in to make it, this is a quote, more accessible to pedestrian use. Wouldn't that also sort of mean that you're expecting pedestrian use. And I take pedestrians not being people parking and walking to the bar. I'm talking pedestrians walking. So
I thought my phrase, and I apologize for attempting to correct you because I'm sure you wrote it down just as I read it. It was for handicapped pedestrians, simply because we have proposed handicap parking spaces here along with the prerequisite ramps and all that good stuff.
Okay. And in terms of the curbing, too, in addition to the concern with cars coming on the Mill Creek and keeping the curbing there, or putting curbing there, is maybe some kind of a barrier, excuse me. Mr. Maloney talked about, not wanting to put the curbing there, and I'm not quite sure I understood the reasoning here. Trying to keep traffic away from a pole and a sign by not putting curbing in. And I wasn't quite sure. To me, curbing would help keep cars away from a pole and a sign.
No, I think that in the area of the pole and sign, we are having curbs.
That's a different. That's not the front. Then you're talking about. You're talking about a different part of the property is where there's curbs and that a pole and a sign. Is that what you mean?
On the east side, this driveway entrance is going to be curbed.
Right.
And this is where the pole is.
Okay.
And that's the area that I was talking about.
Okay.
Sorry if I confused the matter.
I apologize. You just reminded me of that initial situation. One of the items that was a point of concern for TPD at one point was the impact. We have a utility pole that is in the vicinity of this curb return. And they made a substantial concern that the utility pole itself is actually, instead of where we showed it, actually in the driveway and would have to be relocated. We went out to the site and measured it from several different angles and have confirmed that we're at least 2 feet away from where the proposed curb is going to be. So the utility pole...
2 feet in a good way or 2 feet in a bad way?
In a good way.
Okay.
Outside of the proposed driveway, outside of the proposed curb.
Okay.
So realistically, there will be no impact.
On that pole?
On that pole, that's correct.
But in my mind, showing me where that pole is makes me worry a little more if there's not curbing on that, from that eastern part of that driveway, the eastern lip of that opening.
We have the intent for this area is curbing starting from here, coming all the way around, following around, coming back out, and it's terminating here. The idea is simply that we're asking for relief from curbing from this point all the way around the 40 acres.
Right.
Exterior curbing only.
Well, my concern isn't so much about past where this where you're making these modifications to the property. I have no issue with going with waving the all the way around. But like you're pointing out where that pole is, where you're just missing it 2 feet, as you said. But there's no curbing on Mill Creek to keep a car that maybe decides, I can make this, I'm going to try and turn in this driveway and miss it.
Because
there's no curb there to stop them. Correct. There's nothing there where you're pointing. See my point? There's nothing there to stop them.
Someone who knew that the driveway was 80 feet wide at some point. And
yes, and tries to pull in.
I apologize for implying anything.
No, it's fine. But that curb at least would offer some barrier to where that pole is and keep a car away from it. Those are my concerns.
What is that?
But I also, I know, and we have had some concerns. I've heard concerns from people that live on Mill Creek Road that would like to see curbing put in. Property owners that they see us putting curbs in and sidewalks, and curbs especially in areas of Levittown when we're paving different areas of Levittown that don't have curbs, and they feel it's safer to have the curbs in front of their property. And so I'm leaning toward seeing curbing in front of the building, I'll grant not extending it all the way past the septic field. But because you're not going to have, are these driveways now, are they directional? Is one in, one out, or they're both either way?
They're both two-way.
All right, all right, so.
I think you'd be asking too much of the people to.
Right. Oh no, I agree. I just wanted to make sure that you weren't asking them that. All right, those are my concerns. Is there public comment? I see one hand. Can motion to open public comment?
So moved.
All right, just Mr. Holm. We have a motion to open public comment?
Yes.
Yes, second.
Second. All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. All right. Mr. Robert, I'm going to let Mr. Bissell speak first, and then I'll allow you to speak. Mr. Bissell, go ahead.
Thank you. I know you're familiar with the property, but I know you don't know the landscape of the property. In front of the bar is landscaping, which is about as high as your counter there. So it acts like a curbing, but it's landscaping, and it's, I got a water fountain in there, right? That's right in front of the bar. Now, what we're proposing on the parking lot is to narrow that entranceway and bring it down from Route 13 so that the people have, when they're coming off Old Route 13, they slow down by the time they get to the area where this curbing already is. You can't, I'm trying to eliminate this gravel area which is real close to Old 13.
Right.
So where people go in and out sometimes.
Right.
I'm putting curbing here, right here. This is a defined entrance, well-defined entrance. You're not going to have people going from 80 feet to a specific area. To have curbing here is just duplicating the wall that's already there. There's a wall there, and it's as high as your counter there, in front of the house and the bar.
Okay.
To put a sidewalk in, where would I put the sidewalk? It would be up on top of the mound.
Right.
It would be up as high as your counter, and then have to be sloped down to come back down off the house. It makes no sense. Nobody walks up here. They don't walk from Old 13 down to the Mill Creek. They don't walk from the village of Pembroke up to the Mill Creek. It's not a pedestrian. I have people who drive up. So the curbing is, I think, is adequate. It's well-defined entrance, which is going to be more aesthetic as to what's there now. I'm making a 100% improvement just by doing what I'm doing. The curbing is here. There is curbing here, and the light pole is inside the curbing.
Okay.
So I think you're misunderstanding what we're trying to do. We're adding curbing where it's needed.
Right.
And along front of the bar and the house, it's not needed because there's a wall there.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Robert?
He's got to get up and speak on every agenda item.
Thank you. I'm really amazed at the consideration and concern that you people are having for now sidewalks and curbs at this area. Nobody had concerns for curbs and sidewalks from Hood Boulevard to Tyburn Road on New Falls Road. I don't know where we are with that, okay? And you're not going to tell somebody that might be inebriated that he's got to walk on a sidewalk. He'll walk wherever he wants to, and I'm sure we're all aware of that. What is the purpose of curbs? Aesthetics, or is it stormwater control? That's what you want to look at. Okay, a lot of roads will, if you get down some major highways, do you ever notice you got a catch basin and you got 10 feet of curb on each side, and then for another 400 feet you have nothing but grass? Why do we have to spend all this time on this sidewalks for this particular area? Is it for land development? They don't want to put the sidewalks in. I think he said the sidewalk was yay high. Where are you going to put the sidewalks on New Falls Road? Maybe you ought to solve that problem before you get into this problem 30, 40 years from now. You're going to have the same problem. As it builds up, people are going to get, gee, Will, we ought to have sidewalks there. We ought to have curbs there. Somebody's going to get hurt. Yeah, they are, sooner or later, that's for sure. But that's my big concern is, why are we worrying about sidewalks here, there, and so forth when everybody's going to drive? Is this to a bar or to a center, shopping center, or what? I'm not familiar with the area there.
Yeah, the Mill Creek Inn's a bar.
Mill Creek and a bar. So you're worrying about, what, 500 feet? How about the rest of the area. You're going to put sidewalks all the way from the nearest house to the bar or the nearest house to the shopping center? That's my concern. I think we're, spitting into the wind, as they'd say in the service. Okay, you're going to wind up getting it back on you. That's all I have at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Well said, Mr. Obert. Well said.
Are there other comments or concerns? No? Is there a motion to close public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, we've heard from the applicant as well as the owner, public, and board as well. Looking at preliminary land development, we've heard some concerns about the waivers that have been asked for and some discussion on those. The chair will entertain a motion at this time regarding the preliminary land development for Mill Creek Road, or the Mill Creek Inn on Mill Creek Road. For, let's see, for the record, this would be resolution 2010-06. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask one last question?
Sure, absolutely.
The request for the waiver from the requirement of 15 feet of open space between the curb line, uncovered parking. You did say you were pulling the parking back from the building, correct?
That is.
And you were leaving some, how many feet were you going to have between the?
That is correct. We're proposing the existing parking area as it stands now is right up against the existing building.
Right.
We're proposing to pull it back, I believe, between 5 and 7 feet.
Okay, so you're doing that to give people a chance to walk between the parking area and the building itself?
That's correct, yes.
I understand.
Okay. All right then, is there a motion for this plan?
Mr. Chairman, one last question.
Sure.
Mr. Sullivan, the explanation that was given for the disturbance of steep slope, that there are other steep slopes, I know we've discussed the berm, but they're talking about only 2 acres out of the 40 having been surveyed. I didn't ask you, I think, at the time. Does that make sense to you? Do you have any concerns about it?
I would say it's an abundance of caution that they are looking for that waiver without knowing the topography of the rest of the site. I don't know how many steep slopes there are on the remainder of the site, but they're talking about only the area they've surveyed and only
Right.
the immediate area of the project.
Right.
So, and the disturbance of man-made slopes, the reason not to disturb slopes is natural resource protection.
Correct.
But in this case, those are man-made slopes in a heavily disturbed area.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure I heard from other board members if there was a concern about the number of concrete monuments being proposed. I don't know if that was a major concern of other board members.
Mr. Zipka raised it. I don't
It was
know.
with me. I don't have any concern with the sidewalks or the curbs. I mean, just coming over here this evening, I counted 11 people, and 9 of them were walking in the streets. So we have perfectly good, brand-new sidewalks from the walk-ins. So I don't really have concerns with curbs or sidewalks over there, but the flood, being in the flood, what they're doing with the septic system in the floodplain, I just think, with some of the rains we've been having and possibly continue next couple of years, that could be an issue. And also the berms, but that was one point I brought up about the monuments. There has to be some way of working around that. But those are my three concerns with the waivers.
Okay.
My concern was connecting the 2 driveways. That's the septic area. He's got him here. It is what it is.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Excuse me, but as this is only preliminary, if there are concerns about some of the waivers, the board, first of all, the board has to act on this evening because we're under time limit to act on the original preliminary plans. But if the board has concerns about some of the waivers, the board can approve the preliminary land development, but not approve the waivers that it has a concern with, and ask that before the applicant comes back for final land development, that they address some of these issues with Mr. Sullivan and perhaps provide additional information to the board that will satisfy, or at least attempt to satisfy, your concerns. So if there are 2 or 3 or 4 of the waivers, you just don't grant those waivers, and then when we're back at final, you can consider them again at that point in time.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I know Mr. Sullivan dealt pretty well, and Mr. Dumack as well explained it very well, the waivers for the slope issue, as well as the concrete boundaries. I'm not sure Mr. Zupka still has an issue with that. I hear your concern with waiver C regarding the FEMA floodplain issue. The requiring 15 feet of open space between the curb and the parking and the building doesn't seem to be a waiver I heard much concern about. So if someone, following Mr. Clark's idea, wanted to make a motion to approve some of these waivers this evening and not others, then at final land development, we could certainly come back and take a look at these others, and we could grant them at that time. So the waivers granted would be for 19137B, which is the 15 feet of open space between curb and building, 19152-1B3, which is the steep slope, and possibly 19160, which is the concrete boundaries. Approving those waivers and not approving others. Again, I'd like to have, I have looked at the property, I've gone past it and taken a look at it. I do want to go back and look at it again, and listening to Mr. Bissell's, comments about the front of the building. But that's those are the concerns I have right now. Mr. Zupka's concern about the floodplain issue, and the concerns that Mr. Dent's raised, which I also have about the curbing and the sidewalk issue.
I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary a land development plan, with the exception of well, it's numbered 7, which is 191-52-1B, which is the the floodplain, and then number 9, which is 191-52-B3, which is the slopes, and section 191-60. With the exception of those 3, I make a motion to approve the preliminary.
Okay, so we would be, then you're making a motion then to grant the waiver for sidewalks and curbing, and for the 15 feet of open space parking?
Yes.
Okay, but not the others?
That's fine. I'll second it.
Can we leave out number 5 for now?
Yeah, I left number 5 out.
Which would be, which one are you looking at?
191-39G.
That's the sidewalk issue?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
He left that out in his, oh no, you were asking to add that in there. Okay.
In the resolution, in the resolution, it's the numbers would be 7, 9, and 10.
And 5.
Yeah, Mr. Dentz is asking for 5 as that as well. If you'd be open to amending your motion for 5. If not, then we'll vote on the motion as is. It may not pass, but at that point we can come back and do another motion.
Again, the sidewalk part doesn't bother me, but I'll amend the motion to include number 5, which would be section 191-39G.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Now, Mr. Chairman, before you vote, if I could just make sure we're clear, a motion to grant preliminary land development and granting waivers for section 191-37B and 191-62B, and denying waivers for 191-39G, 191-52.1B1, 191-52.1 B3 and 19160. Is that correct, Mr. Zupke?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe that's correct. Mr. Snipes, that's your understanding as well?
That
Mr.
is,
Second?
yes.
Okay. Mr. Dumack, I'm sorry, one more time. Can you show me again the curbing that's coming out of this parking lot on the eastern side? How far up Mill Creek Road or down, whichever one way you call it, how far down Mill Creek Road does it go, where that pole is?
You're looking at approximately 15 to 20 feet. The curb radius is roughly 12, no, I apologize. I believe that's a 25-foot radius, so you're looking at 25 feet going down Mill Creek Road.
Okay. All right. Okay, thank you. All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any questions on the motion? We've had a little bit of time to put this together, no?
No.
Okay. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zupke?
Yes.
Mrs. Wieslowski?
I pass. I'll vote last.
Mr. Harden?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
I would like to explain my vote. I've always been a champion of the small businessman, not the fat cats that are under KOIZ and get a free ride off the backs of people like yourself who pay the taxes. So I want you to know that on advice of counsel, nothing related to anything that you've petitioned here. I've read all of the data that came with this. I know where the Mill Creek Inn is. And I can tell you that I am not permitted to express an opinion because of a legal matter. Has nothing to do with you. So I don't want you to believe that that's so. Now, Mr. Gray, a couple of meetings ago, we had a discussion about us having deemed approval because things were held up till the last minute. I'm going to once again now ask you to monitor more carefully and schedule these things so our backs are not against the wall where we're required to vote on something because no one was paying attention. So my voting last tonight gives me the opportunity to see if or not this thing would pass, because I, on something that I feel strongly about, would ignore the advice of attorney and vote anyhow. As it is, you've got 4 votes for approval, and I don't have to express an opinion. My vote is an abstention, Mrs. Pullum.
Mrs. Or Mr. Gray, was this, or Mr. Sullivan, both, was this plan ready to be seen at the March meeting, the second March meeting?
No.
No, it was not. Okay,
No, it was
so
not.
we couldn't have seen it earlier than this.
No, we could not.
Thank you.
Then we should get the required extensions from the petitioners so that we don't get backed against a wall. Mr. Maloney, I'm going to caution you too. So you make sure that you do not put us behind the 8 ball when we have something that's being considered, because I'm going to be real unhappy about it. And I will say so, and I'll say why.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I always will grant extensions
I believe you have already with this.
routinely.
That's why this lecture belongs to the manager more than you. He's the one that's supposed to be monitoring this for our meetings.
And if for some reason the township was not willing to vote on this tonight, or we couldn't bring it to a vote, I would have been happy to grant an extension. And,
I realize that, and I thank you for that attitude.
Thank you. Good evening.
Okay, thank you. All right. Item 3 on our agenda is consider resolution for A.L. Patterson Sewer Planning Module, tax parcel number 13-51-1-19. Mr. Gray.
Yes, this is a sewer planning module that is required for A.L. Patterson by the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. At this time, the board is asked to consider approving this sewer planning module.
Okay. All right. Let's say Mr. Clark or Mr. Sullivan here. I guess just in terms of walking us through the little civics lesson here. What's a sewer planning module? Why are we approving it? What happens if we don't?
A.L. Patterson came in a couple years ago with a land development. They had a building proposed, and that was approved, but on the same plan they had a second building that was proposed. They could only build the one building without going through the planning module process. They qualified for an exemption from the planning module process because the sewer flows from one building was less than 800 gallons per day. with the building and the second building, which I'm not sure if they're going to build it, but they at least want to get through this process to see if they can build it. They have to go through this planning module process.
Okay.
What happens is there has to be capacity in the collection and conveyance system, which is owned by U.S. Steel. There has to be capacity in the treatment system, which is also owned by U.S. Steel. But the Board of Supervisors must approve the resolution adopting a change to the Act 537 plan for this particular project. That's why there's a resolution in front of you this evening. It was in front of the Planning Commission last month, and they approved it. Component 4B has been signed by the Chairman of the Planning Commission, and it's in position to be approved by the Board of Supervisors this evening.
Okay. All right, thank you. And this would be, what, Resolution 2010-7?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so comments or questions from board members for Mr. Sullivan regarding the sewer planning module?
No, none.
Mr. Zilke, Mr. Wisłowski?
None.
Mr. Snipes?
No, Mr. Chairman, none.
Mr. Dents?
No.
And I have none. Any public comment needed? See no hands. Okay, is there a motion then to adopt resolutions 2010-7?
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zepka?
Yes.
Mrs. Wisłowski?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Item 4, consider resolution supporting the application for the Delaware River Joint Toll Bridge Commission for a grant under the CAI program. Mr. Gray.
Yes, recently the township applied for a grant through the Delaware River Joint Toll Bridge Commission. This grant is for just over $113,000. This is for traffic signal upgrades at the intersection of New Falls and Tyburn Road. This grant is for shovel-ready projects and must be completed by year end. Some of the upgrades at this intersection include new conduit, junction boxes, wiring, signal heads, LED signal indicators, and a new controller assembly. The grant was submitted on March 31st, 2010, and the final task in this application process is to request the board to consider approval of a resolution supporting the application. At this time, the board is asked to consider approving this resolution.
Okay.
In addition, Jerry Baker from Traffic Planning and Design is here to answer any questions the board may have.
Okay. Mr. Baker, how are you? I believe we approved, I guess, the traffic planning design doing the design of this, correct? Have we done that already, I think?
Yeah, the design is already completed, yes.
Okay. All right. So it's just ready at this point, looking to go out, getting ready to go out to bid.
Yes.
Okay. Comments or questions for Mr. Gray or Mr. Baker? Mrs. Wisłowski?
None.
I apologize. Mr. Zipka?
None.
No? Mr. Snipes?
Yes, I'd like to hear a description of the upgrades and what it'll entail and what it'll do for the community.
Good evening. Excuse me. My name is Jerry Baker. I'm with Traffic Planning and Design. The improvements were for the intersection of Tyburn Road and New Falls Road. My understanding is that this intersection was identified, I believe, I don't know if it was a year or two ago, as part of the township's traffic signal maintenance program. The improvements were designed around that time, probably about a year ago. It was a project that the township was going to take on themselves. And from what I understand, I guess it was funding, lack of funding or something similar to that, put the project on hold. And then this funding kind of came along within, I think, maybe the last month. And the projects that would be considered had to be shovel-ready. So this seemed like a perfect fit. The township could get something done that they were originally planning on doing anyway, and you could potentially get grant money to do it. So the original plan, I believe, was just to upgrade some of the signals, that basically get rid of the incandescent light bulbs, replace them with LEDs. It's less maintenance on the township. Obviously, they cost less to operate. We're going to do, I believe, signal actuation. Right now, it's a pre-timed signal. So you're really wasting a lot of the green time associated with that signal. So by actuating the left turn movements on Tyburn Road, as well as the side streets on New Falls, you will see improved traffic flow at the intersection. And then I believe, the project was then expanded now that there's a potential for this grant money, to to also upgrade the conduits, the wires, and rather than just changing out the light bulbs and replacing them with LEDs, actually changing out the whole signal head. And basically what we've done is maximize the improvements that you can do without going back and revising the signal plan that we've already gotten approved through PennDOT, because we just simply don't have time to go back and redesign that. So I believe that was the other improvement that I guess is also proposed is volume density. Basically what that is, when you're approaching the signal, particularly during non-peak hours, there's what's considered a dilemma zone. You're coming up to the signal, you see it turn yellow, you have to decide, do I stop or do I continue through the intersection? So traditionally what was done was volume density detectors were placed in the road. In this case, we have an opportunity to use some new technology, which is basically a camera, and it'll actually sense the vehicle speed and determine how much green time it needs to allocate for that vehicle. So it's a little bit of a smarter system than what has been traditionally used. So again, I think you have a lot to gain here, and if it's approved, you could get it all done with grant money.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Dents?
No questions.
And I think one of the things, I don't know if Mr. Gray mentioned it, or Mr. Baker, if you mentioned it and I missed it, but this is also going to have emergency preemption.
Yes, I'm
on it.
sorry, I failed to mention that. That's correct.
So which would obviously allow our emergency responders to pass through that intersection a little bit more safely and a little bit quicker, and also the backup, the power backup, in case the power does go down. How long usually does that sort of backup last? We've had obviously a lot of storms recently that have knocked power out in different places, and we have police officers out there directing traffic because the lights have gone down in certain intersections. How long would I guess the power last if it went out?
That's a very good question. Unfortunately, I don't. We have other engineers in the office that actually do the signal designs.
Okay.
I think you're going to get at least several hours out of it, probably. And another thing is with the LEDs, I believe that
They
time
use
is
less
extended
energy, right?
because they run on a much lower voltage.
Right. Okay.
And I would guess it's probably a function of how many batteries that you're putting in the system, but. I think you can get at least several hours out of them.
Okay. Yeah, it certainly is an intersection. It needs to have the traffic flow a little better. I come through it, going to and from work, and pretty much almost everywhere I go, I have to go through an intersection. So I'm very familiar with it. But thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you.
Is there any public comment? See a couple hands. Okay. Motion to open public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Mr. Erickson?
Ray Erickson from Fairless Hills. Are there any plans for the Route 1 in Tyburn as well as the Trenton Road and Tyburn intersections to be studied as well?
I don't know if Mr. Baker would be aware of that. And Mr. Gray, have we taken a look at that recently? Or we have that on a list of things to look at? Or
That's probably most likely on a future item to consider, maybe in the following year or the year after.
Yeah, we do.
It's not for this current year. No.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's something obviously we have on the schedule to look at, but not maybe.
On Trenton Road where it intersects Tyburn, you can go through into Falsington and you can see in practically any direction, you can see across Tyburn Road.
Right.
However, at the New Falls Road, you can't see over Tyburn Road, and either leaving Fallstown or Falsington or going into Falsington,
Right.
you can't see over that. And it's also true in terms of what the other portion of Route 1 when you come onto the railroad tracks. When you're trying to go into Falls Township there, you can't see on the other side either in terms of the slope. Is there any way of perhaps giving, I know, how to say, preliminary warning in terms of traffic oncoming? I've had not necessarily a couple close calls, but some very slippery accidents in terms of, for whatever reason, the optics or whatever, a green light and somebody, for whatever reason, at the last moment turning in front and was just fortunate enough to skid out of the way of the oncoming, actually it was a Mack truck.
Yeah, I mean,
but those are two particular points where you really can't see a direct line of vision. So even if you're cautious enough to go through a green light, there might be somebody else who can't see but is turning anyways.
Right. No, yeah, it's a very good point. Obviously, there's not much we can do in terms of changing the elevation of the roads. This is just looking at the signals and hoping that the signals make things a little bit cleaner going through in terms of managing the traffic flow.
That 1913 railroad bridge, that's still part of Falls Township, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yep, thank you. Mr. Obert? You would notice that. I wouldn't. Never see what I'm talking.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, Gallows Obert. This grant was for 100. Does it sound better if I take? Am I whistling?
No, you're fine.
No? Okay, fine. This grant is for 113,000.
No, he's not.
What's the matter? Just a moment, we're having a little technical difficulties. Let's get to stop the clock. Let's pull in. Lisa, you stop the clock for a second.
Check 1, 2.
Going that way?
Yeah.
Restart Mr. Robert's time.
Thanks, Dennis. Again, let me go back. It's for $113,000, and I heard the gentleman say he's talking about LEDs, cost less to operate, and new traffic flow on the side roads. I can't imagine how you're going to get a better flow of traffic on the side roads, because that area where the cemetery is, the lights, and the Volkswagen garage and so forth, how people get there, you're not going to do anything with that traffic. It's still going to be the same. And my next question is, are we getting new poles? Are we going to use the existing poles? Are we going to use the existing conduit? Are we going to fix the intersection with blacktop and get rid of the bumps? If you ever tried to go over New Falls or Tyburn Road into Fallsington doing more than 7 miles an hour, you'll think you're on a hurdy-gurdy ride down at the seaside events. So I don't know whether we're spending $113,000 for new light bulbs and a new controller and so forth. I'm not sure whether that's really a good choice of spending money. That's my feelings, not anybody else's. Okay? I don't know what CAI means. Can you explain that?
CAI is Compact Authorized Investment. So it's usually they're trying to do this. For example, the lights, the traffic signals where you're going underneath the bridge on Woolston, going on Woolston, and you're hitting the new traffic lights where you would turn left to go on Route 1. Those traffic lights that are only a couple of years old, they were paid for through a grant similar to this, because it's looked at that those roads do lead eventually to the bridges that Lower Bucks Joint has control over, and they're looking to improve traffic flow in any intersection where those, that eventually leads to their bridges. I want to give Mr. Baker time to answer your question too about the poles and the conduit, but in the one reference you made to Tyburn Road, I mean it's a state road, and I drive the road every day. I drive over that every day, so I know exactly what you're talking about in terms of the bumps.
Bumpity bump.
Yeah, absolutely. But with a state road, we're not going to be ripping it up and repaving it ourselves.
Before the gentleman answers the questions, might I suggest that in the future in your agenda that when you have an acronym such as CAI, that you put in parentheses what the heck it means, because people looking at it say, what the heck is that?
Okay.
And having been in the service for a few years, they can write a whole two-page story with acronyms, and if you don't know what the heck they mean, you're in trouble.
Yeah, I agree. It's good. That's a good point.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Baker, you want to comment on the questions about new poles and new conduit, I think?
And also, if you could comment on how it's going to increase traffic flow. Brief summary for us.
Okay. Again, first of all, this project was already identified by the township as a maintenance project at least a year ago. So what the township, I believe, was attempting to do was maximize the improvements with the lowest cost. And it's just part of, again, signal maintenance, because obviously the poles and the signal equipment are aging, so you need new controllers, new lights, all that sort of thing. So the township was already planning on doing this. When the grant application came in, again, I think it was a couple weeks ago, possibly a month ago, in order to be considered for the grant, you had to have a shovel-ready project. So luckily, this project happened to have already been approved through PennDOT. So that's why some of the scope is a little bit limited, because it was simply a maintenance project at one point. As far as replacing the signal poles, no, that was not proposed. Again, I think the original cost was probably somewhere in the order of maybe $70,000, $80,000 to do this maintenance project. If we had replaced the signal pole, the mast arms, that throws you in a whole other category of improvements that you need to do, because if you start replacing the mast arms, then you're going to look at ADA ramps. And that's becoming a big issue these days with the designs of the ADA ramps, and then you're getting into push buttons and crosswalks and curbing, and all of a sudden you could easily double the price of that project. So it was the goal at that time to keep the project as simple as possible. And now we simply don't have the time. You have an opportunity for grant money, so you might actually have the funding available at this point, but you don't have the time to modify the plan in order to do that. So what we did was we went back and tried to maximize the improvements without having to go back and revise the plans. We can ask for new equipment without going back and revising the signal plan. But once we get into, again, mast arms and ADA ramps and even repaving and things like that, then we start getting into the handicap ramps and revising the permits.
What about in terms of conduit? There's new conduit going in?
Yes, so the conduit's going to be replaced now, the wire's going to be replaced, the whole signal head would be replaced as opposed to just changing out the light bulbs. Again, the controller, the battery backup.
Right. And how's that, going back to Mr. Dentz's question, how is that designed to sort of increase the flow, which, going backwards from that intersection, hoping to sort of ease the flow and the roads, further away from that intersection? How's that supposed to work? How's it going to improve things?
Well, now the signal will be an actuated signal. So, as it's operating today, there's no chance for a left turn phase, or there might be the side street will get called whether there's a vehicle sitting on it or not. So now you're taking green time away from the main road. So with the improvements, we'll have actuation on the side streets, and they're only going to get called if there's a vehicle present. Same thing with the left turns off of Tyburn Road. If there's no one in the left turn lane, there's no reason to call that phase, and you give that extra green time to the other approaches and other phases of the traffic signal. So that's how you get the additional capacity.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
It's interesting to hear this wait time with the green light. If you've ever traveled on Trenton Road and tried to go through the intersection at Vermilion Hill and Pathmark, you can sit there and grow a beard by the time that light things. And I think there's something like 19 lights in that place. 19 lights for a offset of a crossroad. Now, you want to take something, or you take half of those 19 lights and put them out there on Trenton Road or on New Falls Road and get rid of them. But I just can't see this. Why don't we take the $113,000 and say to the state, well, give us the money, we'll put it in an account, and we'll save it for it, and when we get the time, we'll do the whole thing. Because remember, that's the same road that you want to put new sidewalks down to get into Fallsington from New Falls Road.
No, that's not true. If the discussion of sidewalks would stop essentially where St. Joseph the Worker is.
It's going to stop there?
If the project is going to go through, that's the design would stop there.
Okay. Well, you notice that St. Joseph the Workers School is being closed this June. So maybe we ought to take a better look at the sidewalk scenario altogether.
Yeah, it's something we're continuing to look at. We haven't made a final decision yet, but obviously we'll have a public meeting on that too.
Well, that's going to be an interesting meeting to come to. I hope I don't miss it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Is there a motion to close public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we're looking at Resolution 10-08, which would be supporting the application to the Delaware River Joint Toll Bridge Commission for a grant under the Compact Authorized Investment Program funding. Is there a motion?
This is just to support the getting the grant.
Correct.
Okay.
Did you make a motion?
No, not yet.
I'll make one.
To approve the resolution. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, motion is made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zepka?
Yes.
Mrs. Weslavsky?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dent?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
I watched the presentation on the monitor in the back room.
Okay. All right, item number 5 is consider appointing of a conflict engineer. With the changing of engineers from CMX to TNM, the possibility has emerged, although we don't think it's going to be a major issue, but the possibility has emerged that there could be plans that come before the township in the future that were designed by TNM before they were our engineer. If that's the case, then obviously the TNM engineers can't review a plan prepared by TNM engineers. And so if that occasion arises, we would have to go with a conflict engineer who would be able to work on that project and that project alone to do the necessary reviews and recommendations so that we can prepare for these meetings and figure out what we're doing. My understanding is that, and obviously we can set the rules on this if we want to, but the conflict engineer would basically be paid, be coming in with the fee schedule identical to CMX, and would also be working only if we provided them with some project to look at. They would not be working on a retainer. They would not be taking any kind of payment unless we actually had something for them to do. But it would obviously make things a lot easier if a project comes in and we need to give it to somebody. We have somebody to give it to, and we can move as quickly as possible and as seamlessly as possible. And that is sort of the issue here. There are a few engineering firms that have put in for this. The engineering field is relatively small, and I think they kind of realize that if T&M's taking on jobs, that's a possibility that they would be, in conflict at some time. And so the issue at this point is whether or not to appoint a conflict engineer, and if so, which firm to go with.
I have a question.
Certainly.
Well, you answered one of them because I was going to ask if there was a retainer that was required to be paid, and I would definitely vote no.
Yeah, so as would I.
And my second question would be, why must we do this? Have we had occasion where a conflict presented itself in the past?
Yes, we did.
Yes, we have.
How often?
It happened just a few weeks ago. There was a conflict with a project, and the project was given because we didn't have a conflict engineer, and obviously it was going to take until this meeting to appoint one, and we didn't want to waste that time. The project was given to traffic planning and design. They were able to do that project. It's I think, relatively limited in terms of what they're doing, and they're doing it sort of, I guess, an emergency basis for us as a service. But obviously,
Let's have specificity. Exactly what was the conflict and what project?
the project was a project that was designed by T&M. The company name, Mr. Sullivan?
Sims Metal.
Sims Metal. It was a project that was done by T&M over the past, I guess, year or so before they became involved with Falls Township. And so they obviously couldn't be reviewing a project that they designed. Mr. Zipka? Comments or questions?
Well, comments. In over 10 years of being on the board, I can only remember 3 times we've ever had to use a different engineering firm for some type of conflict. While I don't see anything wrong with either of these companies that's applied, I just, frankly, you said just a few weeks ago we had an issue. It was handled. I don't see why we have to appoint a conflict engineer.
Okay. Mr. Snipes?
No, I think we should move forward with this, and I hope we do this evening.
Okay. Mr. Dents?
Hopefully we never need to use a conflict engineer again, but it would be nice to have someone that we know what their rates are ahead of time. I mean, that's at least going to be the same as what T&M charges, and we know who we're going to go to in the future and not, not so much be at the mercy of anybody else. But, I mean, luckily, Traffic Planning Design was able to help us on short notice. But right after we did appoint T&M last month, apparently everybody knew that we were going to need a conflict engineer because it wasn't long before they were all knocking on our door. And we did need one, so.
It amazes me that We don't have a sense of urgency about any of the urgent matters here, but something that might occur once in a blue moon, we're hot to trot. And that just doesn't make much sense to me. And, you know, one of the things that I can think of was brought up tonight by Mr. Obert, and that's New Falls Road. Nothing is being done that makes any sense to any of the residents. I get asked about it all the time. Now, that's an urgent project. And boy, it'll founder like the Little League field foundered for 5 years.
Actually, Ms. Wisłowski, you received a proposal by TPD a few weeks ago on that project, so you've had it at your disposal for several weeks now and able to look at it and study it. So if you wanted to
I was
bring it
in
up.
Florida. I have to take a vacation from you guys, or I'd be down at the Mill Creek Bar getting drunk every night.
Okay. Well, as long as you have excuses. And I agree with Mr. Dent's
Excuses? How dare you? Keep your snide remarks to yourself. You are disgusting, and everywhere I go. Last night at 11 o'clock in one of the drugstores, one of your students told me how much you were despised. So don't start it, and I won't have to finish it.
Okay. I'm not sure which drugstores are open at 11 o'clock.
Keep your snide remarks to yourself, Harvey.
All right. Yes, ma'am. Okay.
So, can I keep going?
Yeah,
We're not spending any money. There's no retainer for this.
Right, that was the point I was going to make.
Conflict engineer. I mean, it's not costing us anything. We may never use a conflict engineer.
Right. So it doesn't.
Just in case, it would be nice to know who we're going to go to.
And
Mr. Dents, did my point sail over your head? Because I say, if we devoted as much time and moved as quickly on the things that are truly urgent, that would suit the citizens better, and it would certainly make me happier.
Okay.
Well, I feel that there was an urgency because last month we had to go find the conflict engineer first month of using T&M. So this is, in my book, pretty urgent.
Okay. I agree.
Was T&M a campaign contributor?
No, I don't know.
We'll check the records.
Go ahead. And once you file your records, we can check yours. Is there a motion then to appoint one of these firms, Remington, Vernica Beach, or Gilmore and Associates, the two firms we have information on? Again, they would be at the same rates that T&M uses, which is the same rate CMX was in. So,
yes, Mr. Chairman,
go ahead.
I can make a motion to appoint Remington, Vernick, and Beach engineers as our conflict engineers. Do we need to say the rates at the same rates that we're now
Paying T&M.
Using with T&M?
Okay. All right. The motion's made. Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second the motion.
Second. Is there a public comment needed? See no hands. Okay. Motion is made and seconded. Ms. Pullen?
Mr. Zepka?
No.
Mrs. Wisłowski?
No.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dent?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Okay. Item number 6 is consider adopting an ordinance to enroll in the public Pennsylvania Retirement Municipal Retirement System for Public Works Union. This was an ordinance that was advertised at the last meeting, I believe, or meeting before that, but it's been advertised the proper amount of time, correct, Mr. Clark?
That is correct.
All right, Mr. Gray, you want to run us through real quick why we're doing this again?
Yes, by adopting this ordinance, the township will identify PMRS as the administrator for the Public Works Department pension plan. It will also identify ICMA as the administrator for the pension plan for AFSCME and for non-township union employees. At this time, the board is asked to consider adoption of this ordinance.
Okay, and this is an ordinance that our employees are aware of and are in favor of, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Right now, the Public Works Department is with the ICMA, and they would like to consider moving their pension assets to PMRS.
Okay.
Now, this is going to work as a 401K?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Now, contributions from the township, or just strictly from the our
employees?
Yeah, how it will work is similar to how we're doing it right now. 5% of the township's employees' salary will be contributed, township money will be contributed into the employee's plan.
Now, will the employees have the opportunity to contribute?
No, they will not. They do not currently, and they will not in the future. They can contribute to a 457 plan, but they currently do not contribute to a 401.
And how soon are from the inception, are they fully vested, or is
They're
it?
vested immediately. Upon being hired by the township, they are vested automatically.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Vislowski, questions?
None.
Okay, Mr. Snipes?
No, thank you.
Mr. Dents?
This is at the request of the employees. This is what they want. This doesn't affect
Public-
the township at all.
No, Public Works
Right.
would like to move their assets to PMRS. The rest of the employees will stay with ICMA.
Okay, no other questions.
No, and I have none either. And this would be, I believe, ordinance 1001?
1001, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Is there any public comment needed? See one hand. Is there a motion to open public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Robert?
What's the ordinance number 10?
I will see if the microphone holds up this time. Question on item 6 is, how many employees are involved in this, Mr. Gray?
There are approximately 16 Public Works employees.
How many?
16?
16?
Yes.
Okay. They do have an existing retirement system now,
Yes, they do.
and they've decided to change retirement systems?
They would like to move to PMRS. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. My next question is, we're going to contribute the 5%, am I correct?
That's correct.
If it's a 401K, it's usually tied in with stock markets and so forth, up, downs?
Yes.
Okay, now, are we saved in any way so that if they take a hit, the stock market, like the school teacher's retirement is taking a hit, and you people, I say you people, us people in Falls Township are going to take a hit in 3 years?
No, this is a defined contribution plan. I believe that's a defined benefit plan.
Okay, so we're not going to be held accountable if the market goes down to still
Correct. You're
put
right.
in that 5%, right?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. I can breathe a little easier for this thing, but this is only 16 employees, where the teachers' union in Pennsbury and so forth is like 865, and we're going to get smacked right between the eyes on that one. I thank you very much.
Okay. Any other public comment needed? See no hands. Motion to close public comment?
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Is there a motion then to approve ordinance 10-01?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance -10, or I'm sorry, ordinance 10-01.
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion made and seconded by Mrs. Vislowski. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zupka?
Yes.
Mrs. Vislowski?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Okay, item number 7 is consider adopting ordinance amendment to Chapter 109 Construction Codes. This is dealing with the International Fire Code portion of the Pennsylvania Construction Code. This is ordinance 10-02, again, authorized for the proper length of time. And then, Mr. Clark, you gave us a little bit of a rundown as to what we're doing here. Essentially, the gist of the matter is, what this does is that as the International Fire Code changes, our code will change to match it automatically. We won't have to go back and ratify every single change that happens year by year by year.
That's correct, Mr. Harvey. When we originally adopted ordinance 0410, adopting various codes, we did not include the language that allowed there to be an automatic adoption of any update. And the one, when we did it a few years later to make sure that it was covered, for some reason the fire code was left out. This is just cleaning that up right now.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, is there comments or questions regarding ordinance 10-02? Mr. Zupka?
None.
Mrs. Vislowski?
No, but I do get a lot of complaints about our fee schedules when a homeowner decides to do an improvement to his property, and I wanted to call that to the attention of this board. We are the wealthiest of all 54 municipalities in Bucks County, and I think it's a disgrace that the little guy gets tapped for everything when the pay-to-play guys and the KOIZ and all these promises fell through the cracks, and we're picking up the tab for the freeloaders.
Okay, doesn't apply to the ordinance, but okay. Mr. Snipes, comments or questions?
No.
Mr. Dents?
No.
Okay, and I have none either. Is there comments or questions from the public? See no hands. Okay, is there a motion to accept ordinance 10-02?
I'll make a motion to accept ordinance 10-02.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zupka?
Yes.
Mrs. Wisniewski?
Abstain.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Okay. All right, item number 8 is to approve a lease for T&M Associates. Mr. Gray?
Yes, a lease has been prepared for one of the township's new tenants, T&M Associates. This lease agreement begins April 1st and ends December 31st, 2010. Rent for this office is based on $16.18 per square foot. At this time, the board is asked to consider approval of this lease agreement with T&M Associates.
Okay, Mr. Gray, this would be the same space that CMX was leasing from us?
Same space, yes.
Okay. So
Same amount of money?
Just a slight variation. It'll bring them on par with similar rents paid by other tenants in the building.
Did it go up or
I
down?
believe it went slightly up.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So Mr. Sullivan doesn't have to go move his Boston Red Sox pennant. Mr. Zupka, comments or questions?
None.
Mrs. Wisniewski?
None.
Mr. Snipes?
No.
Mr. Dents?
No.
No, and I have none either. Okay, is there a motion then to approve the lease to T&M Associates in the amount of $16.18 per square foot?
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zupka?
Yes.
Mrs. Wisniewski?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan, you're really a Red Sox fan?
Yes, that's correct.
Oh.
I don't think Mr. Dents knew that when he first approved you.
I like the Phillies,
I didn't
too.
know that last month.
I like the Phillies, too, so it's okay.
Okay, thanks. All right. Okay, we have the public comment here. First name on the list is Roland Kenny.
Yes.
Roland Kenny, Falls Township. Just going to thank a few people. First, Mr. Harvey. If Kim McCarty was here, she thanked you for the comments you made last during board comment. I know she'd probably be pleased what you said. That's almost the same thing as Mr. Fitzpatrick, when he came out of that, said to me. Next, I'm on the board of Addenroe, where I live. I just like to, on behalf of the people of Addenroe, to thank our gardener, Jerry Kenny, Greengrass. Did a fantastic job this last snowstorm, where I heard some bad stories, like up in 5 Ponds, took them 2 days to get out. Place across the street from him, another 2.5 days. We were never stuck. He got it done, and I'd just like to thank him. He spells his name N-Y. His wife wished I would go back to N-Y. No. Third, see, what was the other one? Always have 3 things to say. No, that's about it. Good night. God bless you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Lizette Morales Chimicki.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Supervisors. Again, my name is Lizette Morales Chimicki. I'm the project coordinator for Pennsbury Lift, which is the Community Prevention Coalition. I was just 2 things. One thing, I was so honored to be here and to listen to the commendations to the officers. Without them, you know, they are such a great supporter of our youth and our teen group and our Lift Community Coalition. So I was really happy to hear that they were here, and they're here. They're always available for to help us and keep our youth safe and drug-free. The reason why I'm here tonight is to extend the invitation to the board supervisors as well as the community to come out to our, this year we've changed it a little bit. We usually have a town hall meeting every year on different issues in the community that we are concerned with. Our LIFT Awareness Teen Advisory Group has been, in the past year, going to several leadership conferences, and they actually went to the board and we went to the school and said, you know what, we have a couple of issues that we've seen as teens on underage drinking and prescription drug abuse, misuse, abuse. And it's very concerning to them, and we said, you know what, why don't you lead the teen town hall meeting this year? So they've developed a great amount of interactive activities for the teens as well as the parents. They've called for different, we have a guest speaker that's coming out to actually talk about, it's called a Heads Up program that they do for the teenagers at the high school pre-prom, but this is for the parents. Very, you know, in-your-face issues that may be a small concern now, but it is looking up like it's going to be a big problem in the future. So we really, prevention is hard to sell, but it's something that is necessary. So we do appreciate the support from Falls Township in what we are doing. So, and I believe everybody should have one of these, and it is on the Township website, and there are some back there. But we would like the support of the community to come and support our youth. We are really excited this year that they have put a PowerPoint presentation together to actually show the data that they've seen. They've interviewed several of their peers and, you know, to get what their concerns are. So they are going to be out there. We also we'll be highlighting a few of the teen groups right now that we have, which is Falls Township Teen Advisory Panel. We will be highlighting them, highlighting the LIFT Advisory Group, the Fight Against Drug Clubs at the high school and the middle school, as well as the HIP at Pennsbury High School, which does Challenge Day, and they're anti-bullying. So HIP is the Humanity in Progress. So I thought that was a great way for them to highlight their peers. We will also be highlighting all four municipal, four police departments as well, and their support to the LIFT program. So I would just like to say I wish you can all be there. It's going to be on Thursday, April 22nd at 6:30. Even if you stop on by, the activities that we do have are very interesting. We will be having a simulated driving activity booth for teens and adults, and you will put on either goggles or you will be texted or called on your cell phone while you're trying to do this. If you crash, you will get a red dot that you have to wear for the rest of the evening, which means you're walking wounded, or if you've done well, actually, if you ignore your text, you ignore your phone, and pay attention to what you're doing, then obviously you're going to wear a green dot and do well. So this will be for both parents, and there'll be other activities that will try to distract you and see how much time it takes you to actually, do certain activities if you were being distracted, and if not, obviously, so it's going to be time. So it's pretty interactive for everyone, adults and teens alike. So we really want to get the comments out and get the community and parents and teens and school and law enforcement to start dialoguing about the concerns and how we can, as a community, support our youth and keep them safe and drug-free and keep the community safe. And
okay. Right. And
don't walk away yet, please. The location.
Yeah, where's it going to be?
Location is going to be at Pennsbury High School West. And actually this year, because our teens have invited all of their pediatricians as well, we have 27 teens in our teen advisory group, to come and comment on why they prescribe so much and why, so any comments that we have, and they'll be able to field questions from the doctor's perspective. We also have the police, pharmacies as well. Some pharmacists will be there as well to field some questions. And at 6:30 in the staff development room, it will start there. Then, of course, if it gets too big, we have to have it at the auditorium. So
You might consider inviting the local district justices as well.
They both are. And
Good.
actually, they're on our,
Very
our
good.
board as well, so they
Because
will
we
be
used to do that when I was in the court, and it was always successful. And I commend you, you're very articulate, and we're going to repeat, 6:30 p.m., April 22nd, Pennsbury West, and everyone is invited.
Yes, everyone, and you'll have a really great time. You'll get to meet our teens. They're so versed in the different prevention efforts in the community, as well as one other event that we are doing in the future, which is the American Medicine Chest Challenge, which is disposing of prescription drugs, which the county is doing so through Buck's Promise for Youth and Communities, which LIFT is part of and United Way is part of. We're going to be working on a planning committee to do something countywide as well and be able to dispose of medications that are not used.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, and
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. You've talked a lot about teenagers, and I just want to make sure it's open to middle school parents and kids and
And we
elementary
have
school parents
activities
and
for
kids.
younger children as
Okay.
well, so
All right.
childcare is provided.
Right.
But it's teens, so it'll be middle school, high school, and parents, obviously, and community members and local businesses as well.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay,
Appreciate
thank you.
that.
Evening.
Yeah. Okay, Guido Mariani.
The senior center. Now, I believe that the $2 million plus set aside for what I consider to be an unnecessary addition to the senior center is completely misdirected, and let me tell you why. Now, I'm a senior citizen, a little older than probably most senior citizens, which doesn't mean that, you know, my birthday's written in hieroglyphics or Roman numerals. I'm not that old. But as a senior citizen, we senior citizens have a lot of advantages. We have less hair to comb, we have less teeth to brush, and if we need them, we get spare parts like knees and hips. And if we live long enough, we really hit the jackpot because we get to go to a nice home with a lawn and trees, and they give you a free hearing aid so you can hear the birds sing. And we get an open back robe with a little note pinned on it, and cereal box slippers, and a pretty girl to wipe the oatmeal off our chins after breakfast. Now, with all these advantages, do we really need to burden our township taxpayers with what's going to become a future tax increase, which you're not going to be able to avoid, to provide us seniors with an amusement park? As senior citizens, the general population already provides us with benefits like Medicare, Social Security, and I know the argument, we paid into it. I've always paid the maximum into it, and I'm still paying into it, but the reality is, we seniors, we've already taken about 3 times what we've paid into it. So the general population is doing well by us. Demographics, 35,000 people in this township, about 5,000 or 6,000 of them are seniors, and frankly, very few of them belong or use the present facilities, which is, by the way, a private facility and should be self-supporting. Now, locally and nationally, by the way, membership and participation in senior citizen centers is continuing to diminish. Not getting more, it's getting a lot less. Our township, I'm telling you, will be better served. We sell the present site, consider a community center, which all the citizens can benefit, not just us seniors, and get rid of this project. I think along with another unwanted and unnecessary project, which is the boat ramp, and invest those funds maybe in something like geothermal heating and cooling for this building, that in itself would pay dividends because it creates wealth, it doesn't consume it. Another alternative is, my favorite, is to accumulate these funds with all our other funds into an income-producing fund and provide dividends for all of our citizens, not only seniors. I'd really like you to consider not going through with this senior citizen thing. We really don't need it. I say that as a senior. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Gallows Obert?
Good evening again, ladies and gentlemen. Gallows Obert. I'd like at this time to first start out saying to the people of Falls, if you have a computer, check the new Township website. Mr. Matt, the big guy in the back room, has done an excellent job making it rather clear, concise, and informative. I hit on it today, and it was amazing, and I was glad to hear that and glad to see that. Something else happened today that kind of perplexed me is I got hit at the door with two young gentlemen trying to sell me siding and windows and so forth. And I said, gee, you know, sorry, but I really don't want to hear you because I'd like to see your permit for soliciting in Falls Township, which you're required to have. He says, oh, I already have that. And he brought out this little badge and he flashed it at me, and I said, that's your company's ID. And I said, that barcode doesn't do anything unless I go to Walmart. Maybe I'll get priced out at $1.99. And I said, I really don't want to hear what you have to say. He said, well, I'm not soliciting. He said, if you look at Merriam-Webster's dictionary, you'll find that the definition of soliciting is, I said, wait a minute. You don't seem to understand. I don't want to hear what you have to say. And he continued on. He said, why are you giving me a hard time? I said, because you don't have a permit. He said, well, my permit's right here. I said, no, it isn't. Please leave. And he finally left. He didn't do anything but go up and down the street, okay? I called the township and I spoke to our code enforcement officer, Mr. Bennett, and he said, well, he said, that's something really that the police will have to handle. So my question is, where is the rules, regulations for soliciting in Falls Township door to door? If Mr. Gray can answer that, that would be fine, because I think everybody in the township will pick it up at the next meeting with broadcasted, which will be tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow morning or tomorrow night, something like that. Okay, I'm just going to let that go right now, Pete. You can think about that, please. For you people in Falls Township that haven't attended a school board meeting, you know, you got 6 meetings left in the year, 2 in April, May, and June, and the budget crunch is coming. And I ask that you people come out and listen and watch. There's 800 teachers in Falls Township in Pennsbury school system, and last meeting there was 200 plus teachers, maybe 7 residents. There's 10,666 tax parcels. Everybody pays taxes, and very few people show. You know, why I don't understand why you people can't get involved in this, okay? There are 9 people that sit on the school board. They are the ones that are going to raise your taxes. The only thing is they seem to forget that the 1949 Pennsylvania State School Code says that the school board shall raise the taxes in what the community can afford. And it isn't a matter of affording, it's a matter of, well, the school administration sets these desires and the teachers want this and they want a raise and they want the coverage and they want this, that, and the other thing. And again, here we go again, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to stop. But if you don't want to talk to your school board members, of which there are 9, and then don't complain about the taxes going up. Just walk away and say to heck with it, and we'll go from there. In the federal government, I think there's 545 people in the government that set the tax thing. That's the representatives, the congressmen, and so forth. And we're getting taken for a sleigh ride on that one also. So those are my items for tonight, and I thank you for listening. And by the way, I hope everybody had a good Easter, a healthy Easter. And I'd like to leave with this, that just recently I became aware that I think it was Harry Truman set away a date of national prayer, a prayer day, and the President of the United States dismissed that in 2008 and said, we'll do away with that, we'll just call it an event. Ladies and gentlemen, when you start doing away with prayer in this country, you're starting to do away with the rest of the country. That's for sure. Think about it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gage, you want to comment on the soliciting permits?
Yes, this particular item that Mr. Obert did mention, I did discuss this with Mr. Bennett, and I referred this to the police department, chief of police, and he did dispatch a corporal out to investigate what was going on.
All right. So I think Mr. Obert, for somebody who's doing that, they have to come to the township, they have to fill out paperwork, they have to get a permit from the township to go door to door asking for business, correct?
I could confirm that tomorrow, but we check each one on an individual basis, make sure that the people who are out there actually do have tags identifying who they are.
Okay. All right, and maybe we can we'll get back to Mr. Obert on exactly what it is that you have to do.
That's for sure. Let's make sure that when we do this, we don't do it just to Mr. Obert, we do it at next meeting so that the people that watch this are fully aware of what's going on. Mr. Bennett says, you're absolutely right. He said there's too many scams going on. And he made the phone call to the police department, and I didn't see the corporal. I'm sure he was there, but I didn't get a chance to see him.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kozlowski?
Following through on Mr. Obert's appeal for the public to attend the school board meetings, I listened to that appeal about a month ago. I have not been able to attend since, but I signed on. And I can tell you that there are 3 people on that school board who really support the taxpayer and the students. And that is Simon Campbell, Catherine Zawicki, and Alan Weisel. Those are the 3 who voted for no tax increase this year in Pennsbury. It was put to a vote at the meeting that I attended, hopefully at my request. I was the one who asked them to take that vote, but it was scheduled to be voted upon because one of the school board members told me. The people who would not support that motion were Mr. de Blasio, Mr. Sanderson, Linda Palsky, the fellow from Makefield, Dolnick, and the last one was Goldberg. Now, 5 of those school board members come up for election next spring, 5 of them. Not the 3 ones that voted for us, and I'm convinced that they will be solidly with the tax-paying public and the school children. They're interested in education and not nonsense. And so I'm asking everyone to make sure they get registered to vote this year so that they can be in position to vote for good school board members who care next spring. And I have offered to lead that fight here in Falls Township, and I plan to do just that. Now, it's sinful. People ask me how some of these guys got elected to this Board of Supervisors, and I said, well, that's easy to explain. When you have over 30,000 registered voters, and only 3,700 come out to vote, then it's usually the lunatic fringe that elects your government officials. If you had a majority of people registered to vote, imagine we've got 35,000 residents here in Falls, given there are a lot of them that are children and under 18 who cannot vote. But I can tell you that we are thousands and thousands and thousands short of the ones who could vote and didn't, and who usually do the most complaining. I have a system now. People take up my time with their complaints. They want me to fight their fights for them, no matter what, divorces or anything. Man, they call the troubleshooter, me. And I look at that list, and I say, did you vote in 2009? Because this information out of the Board of Elections indicated that you didn't. And I'm not donating my time to those people who don't care enough to give one day to good government or to elect school board members who care. There's too much waste going on in that school district. I commend Mr. Obert because he has been a faithful attender of those school board meetings. I have not. I'm 80 years old. I'm spread too thin. I just can't take more meetings. And I'm planning to finish the books that I'm writing, and I've already acquired a bigger home in Florida, a mobile home as it is, but it's 2 doors from my sister, and I plan to go down there. But I will stay here for that school board fight next spring, and I will lead it. So I am asking the people, if you don't know where to register to vote, contact me. All you have to do is send a note to my address at 273 Yardley Avenue in Falsington, drop a letter in my mailbox. I will see that you get registered to vote. But get everyone who's eligible in your home, because this is your last chance to take over the school board in Pensbury. There has never been a time when all the planets were lined up and all the votes were there just for the asking, because the most critical votes will be in the region where the people from Falls Township will be electing school board members. We really only have to elect 2 more, but it's possible to elect 5 more. I own a house in Lower Makefield, and 1 school board seat comes up there. That's where Mr. Campbell is representing that district in Pensbury. And he will find someone to run in that district. Obviously, I've been living here since 2004 because to serve on this board, I had to move back to Falls Township. So please, get out, get registered to vote. It only takes 2 elections a year, and all you have to do is monitor. But that's not asking too much when some of us are here day in and day out doing this thing we call government. Get yourselves registered, and let's clean house next spring.
Okay.
And I thank you all.
All right, those are all the names you have on the list. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak? See one hand. Mrs. Snipes.
Melanie Doty, Snipes Falls Township. Just here with a friendly farm announcement. We have Earth Day coming up, and there's lots of options for residents for volunteering around the township, I know. But at Snipes Farm and Education Center, you can come Saturday, April 24th from 10 to 12 in the morning or 1 to 3 in the afternoon. And we are going to have erosion control projects and our nature trail project, and I'm sure there'll be fun things to do out in the fields. We welcome people of all ages, and it's just going to be a really good time. And just putting a plug in for our farm summer camps and our community-supported agriculture program. Lots and lots of great things happening on the farm. So we hope to see everybody come out to the farm. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Okay. Any other people wish to speak? No? Okay then. All right. Let's see. Next item on our agenda is the minutes for March 16, 2010. Comments or questions regarding the minutes as they are presented? Mr. Zipka, I know you were not here for this meeting. I'm assuming that you're going to abstain from this?
Correct.
Okay. Mrs. Zaslowski, comments or questions?
Yes, I have the usual argument that the minutes are woefully inadequate. Sometimes I think we're trying to rewrite the Holy Bible, since we figure that we have minutes that are supposed to be the Bible of what goes on in this township. And I'm going to refer to something. Usually I just say no, I vote no on them because they're ridiculous. But there is a thing here that says, Mrs. Dorothy Vislowski said she spoke about the Mucci matter with the DA, and the DA asked if the detectives had spoken with her. Mrs. Vislowski said it is their responsibility to take a stand to protect citizens. Now, that's not what I said. I tried to get this board to take a stand because other municipalities had done it. We didn't do it. I had a lot to say about Mr. Mucci, who was running a Ponzi scheme, not just in Falls, but other municipalities. I'm happy to report that he was arrested because there were enough people who were interested in protecting the citizens who were getting scammed by thousands of dollars. And I got any number of complaints. But Mr. Mucci was arrested. He made bail. And I'm told that something occurred this past week while I was away in Florida, that Mr. Mucci was arrested for doing some kind of other check kiting or something. And I'm going to get that article, and I will find out from the district attorney in New Jersey where the jurisdiction took place. But, you know, this guy is a dangerous, dangerous man who has robbed so many senior citizens. And in order to get the documentation accurate, I hired him, and I let him cheat me, and we got him. So, you know, it was an effort by a number of people who got together and said, we've had enough. I'm ashamed to admit that this board didn't see fit to join putting that guy out of business. I think he's going to do important time in jail when all the sins get counted. Okay. So I thank everybody who helped me to report him. The citizens who had been cheated came forward with their facts. And I commend our new district attorney because this thing has been going on for years with inadequacy in the district attorney's office. Judge Heckler, now the Bucks County district attorney, is doing an incredible job, and I'm proud to say I supported him for election, and he's more than lived up to the expectations I had.
Mr. Snipes, any comments or questions regarding the minutes?
No, Mr. Chairman. Excellent minutes, Mrs. Pullen, once again.
They can't be excellent minutes if they're inadequate. And you gentlemen, and I use the word loosely because you pass them whenever things are so woefully inadequate.
You had more than enough time to speak and make.
Yes, I know. And that person on the end of the board says excellent minutes.
If there's a particular,
God help us all.
If there's a particular comment about a change, we could entertain that, but there doesn't appear to be.
No, it never is. Mr. Dent's comments.
There is tonight. Let's see what kind of a change, because you'll say excellent minutes again.
You've had your chance, Mrs. Wazowski.
I had my chance. That's how we got these dodos on this board. You people didn't come out to vote. Pay attention.
Okay, thank you. I have no comments or questions either. Mrs. Pullen, thank you very much for the work you do on this.
Yes, thank you.
And I apologize.
You're running 100% for inaccuracy.
I apologize for the abuse you have to take from one member of the board who needs to learn manners.
Don't ever apologize for me, you elitist hypocrite.
All right. Okay, is there a motion then to accept the minutes as presented?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, make a motion to accept the minutes as presented for March 16th, 2010.
Okay.
The giggle
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
No.
Okay. All right, executive session is next item, but I don't believe we have any issues for executive session. Manager comment, Mr. Gray?
Yes, thank you. My first item deals with time cards here in the township. Currently, township employees, excluding the police, use time cards to clock in and out. Newer systems have been researched by Matt Markey to utilize for this function. One system, the WASP time system, was identified to use to fulfill township needs. This hardware and software will streamline time worked by employees, calculate the time, and generate reports for payroll purposes. The board is asked to consider the purchase of this hardware and software from System ID Warehouse for $3,252.65.
Okay. All right, so this is for obviously calculating, as you said, the pay for our workers. How do they currently how's that calculated as now?
Right now, what they do is everybody punches a time card. When you come in, you have a card, punch it in, punch it out, and at the end of the payroll period, the time is calculated and sent to the payroll department.
Okay. And how long has that system been in place?
Probably at least 20 years.
20 years. Okay.
Probably longer.
All right. So this is the old-fashioned, sort of. We don't still have a whistle that goes off at like 4:30, right? So people can go home. All right. Okay. But it's obviously a very old system, and for an employee who does all the payroll, obviously something much easier is preferable, and something is more not necessarily accurate, but obviously it's much faster. It's much more direct. They swipe a card and it goes right to the computer, correct?
Yeah, it'll save her time doing her reports. It'll save the department heads from calculating the reports and making sure everything is accurate, and it'll streamline the entire process.
Okay. All right. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Gray regarding the swipe card system? Mr. Zupka?
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Gray, this is going to be like a swipe card. Everybody will have their own identification card, and
I believe
as
so,
they come
yes.
in, they'll swipe it through like a credit card, and
Credit card, just put it through, and
then it automatically, the software sends it off to accounting.
it'll go into our system, and it'll calculate the hours when you come in, when you go out, and it'll generate the time.
Now, how about if somebody forgets to clock out?
We'll have to do it manually, and then the person who does the payroll system will go back later, and once it's approved by the department head, we'll put those times.
But every township employee will have their own card with a barcode on it, I'm assuming.
Well, not the police department.
Right. Okay.
Eventually, the Public Works will ask them to consider this as well, and eventually everybody except for the police will use it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Kozlowski?
No comment.
Mr. Snipes?
Futile to make.
No comment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Dents?
No.
Okay, I don't have any either. Thank Mr. Markey for the work he did on this, as well as yourself, Mr. Gray. Is there public comment needed? I see no hands. Okay, then looking for a motion to purchase the WASP time system as outlined in the April 1st, 2010 memo from Mr. Matt Markey in the amount of $3,252.65.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, is there a second?
I will second the motion for Matt Markey. I think he does an excellent job.
Motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zupka?
Yes.
Mrs. Kozlowski?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Snipes?
Yes.
My only other item tonight, I have a few announcements to make on behalf of the Park and Rec Department. The Falls Township Annual Earth Day and Arbor Day celebration will be held Sunday, April 25th. This event will be held at the Falls Township Community Park, Phase 2 Pavilion from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. There will be gardening and a cleanup at the site. There will also be information booths set up by various organizations and businesses regarding various environmental issues. Also, there will be arts and crafts booths available for children. The second item, there will be a teen bowling night at Levittown Bowling Lanes on Friday, April 23rd from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Cost is $12 per person, which includes 2 games of bowling and shoes. All teens are welcome to register. Turn in your registration form and money to the Park and Rec office no later than Wednesday, April 21st, 2010. And that's all I have for tonight.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to move to board comment. Mr. Snipes, would you like to start off?
Mr. Chairman, the hour is late. I'm going to waive my board comment for this evening. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Kozlowski?
I'll pass. I'll speak last.
No, you'll speak now, Mrs. Kozlowski.
No, I'll speak last. No. I have the option. Learn your parliamentary rules.
Yes, I am. I'm the chairman. You speak when I'm asking you to speak. I'm giving you the chance to speak now.
I will
tell you.
This isn't
kindergarten, Mrs. Kozlowski. You don't get to go last just because you want to.
You know a lot about kindergarten because that's exactly what you play every meeting. Mm-hmm. Your snide remarks and all of your derogatory things that you do and say about people in this township. And if you think they go unnoticed, guess again, because they don't go unnoticed. You sit there like an elitist, and they like the name I gave you, Dorian Gray, because you're evil down to your bone marrow, and you act that way at these meetings.
Mr. Chairman,
You don't
can
care about
can
them.
we move on
He's
from this?
making me speak now, and I'm speaking, so you be quiet, because you're one of the idiots
This
they
is your
refer
public
to.
comment?
Yes, this is my
This is your
public
public
comment.
comment. That's-
I'm being forced to do public comment. At least
Shameful.
I'm not promoting the Snipes Enterprises that puts money in my pocket. I spend
My
my
wife
money.
spoke about our nonprofit agency.
Then keep out of this,
Well, then apparently you're
Keep
not
out
aware
of
of
this,
that. It's a
because you'd steal the
nonprofit
pennies off a dead
agency.
man's eyes.
That's enough. That's enough.
No, I'm not finished.
Mrs.
Oh, no, I'm not finished. You said my public comment has to be said now. I was going to talk about the Moochie thing, where we had 3 lines when I was trying to alert the public, and then you had all kinds of lines, 32 to be exact, in those minutes that Snipes said was such an excellent job. I counted them while we were waiting. But it's a lesson in futility. I just want the public to notice what is going on here. You asked me how these guys got elected. They got elected because you stayed home and you didn't vote. And it doesn't matter to me, because they're all being featured in the books I'm writing. I have 12 books that are in partial stages of completion. They're down in Florida. And I can tell you that I have spelled out how a township can get stolen by special interest people. And the big contributors are the pay-to-play guys that get the jobs around here. And the little guy has to pay through the nose for his permits of everything he does. It's crush the little guy, and it's take care of the ones. We have corruption from the federal government right on down here to dear old Falls Township. And it wouldn't matter so much, except the money that they're spending is money that Dorothy Wisłowski brought into this township. And there is no way that they've been able to refute that, because it's all in writing. $500 million is not chump change. And you haven't heard about Gamesa lately and the 5,000 jobs that these guys were just singing the praises because they made the stupid mistake of approving KOIZ with 14 years of no taxes for anything and in the KOIZ zone. You wonder why your taxes are going up? The idiots on the school board approved it. They approved KOIZ, and we've had a tax increase every year that has been so exorbitant. I cook for senior citizens who can't afford to eat, and I take food to them. I spend it with my own money, and I love doing it because it's a good way to see a good deed become tangibly helping someone. But you know, the Pennsbury School Board knows they messed up with the KOIZ. These guys aren't bragging about Gamesa anymore. They've flown the coop practically. They never did produce the 5,000 jobs that were supposed to go to laid off steel workers and people like that. You have been scammed. You think Moochie was bad? I can tell you that that end of the board in the corrupt Democratic Club, they are worse than Moochie because they've hand-tied the entire community. And that's all I'll have to say. Thank you for forcing me to speak, because I would have left that speech lay.
Mr. Zupka.
The first item we had this evening, or the presentation we had this evening, to recognize our first responders, our policemen, our firemen, our EMTs. It's really quite gratifying to see how these people do put themselves out and are really in harm's way, and to be able to give some type of a recognition to them. That hopefully many people in the township will be able to see. You know, it's again, we did a good thing when we started that, and some of the young people who were here this evening. The young lady gave such a great presentation. And the 2 young boys who brought money in that they had raised to give to for our canine program. It's something, too many times in the news, all you hear about is the, I'm going to say, the younger generation of being in trouble or starting trouble, and you really don't hear about the majority of the younger generation that are out there really trying to do the right thing, and they set the right example. What is it? 3% of the people bring out 80% of the publicity, and which is what I'm saying is on the bad side. Staff Sergeant Small was here tonight, and well, Officer Small, but this evening he had his uniform on. I recall when he was getting activated and getting ready to be deployed. And I sat in on the meetings of making the decision what we were going to do with not just Staff Sergeant Small, but other members of our police department or our communities, our township employees, if they also got deployed. And it didn't seem like that hard of a decision to me anyway to set up and do what we did with Staff Sergeant Small, to make sure he had a position to come back to make sure his finances were helped out. And I never thought much about it, but hearing him speak this evening about how many other fellas, well, maybe gals also, that weren't treated that way. Here's guys and gals who are putting themselves again in harm's way. They're out there. They should be commended, and they should just automatically, their family should be taken care of until they get back, and they should have a job to come back to. Again, to me, it was very gratifying to hear that this evening. And well, spring is started. I don't think we even had spring, but it's getting a little too warm. But everybody have a good evening, and be careful out driving, because we are going to get cameras that are going to take your license number and send you the tickets. I promise you, we will get them. Bye. Have a good night.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dents.
I have no comment tonight.
Okay. The only comment I wanted to make was to thank two people, Mr. Markey, and I'll allude to something Mr. Obert had talked about earlier, Mr. Markey and Mr. Gray, who, Mr. Gray was first hired. One of the things he said he wanted to do was make things a lot more accessible to people and make the township work a little bit more efficiently, and especially improve the website we have here at the township. And that has been done under his supervision, his guidance. Mr. Markey was the person who was hired by Mr. Gray to do that, and it has really worked tremendously. We have easily the finest website of any municipality in the county, and I would even say it rivals the county's website. And I would doubt how many websites in the state are able to do the things that this one's able to do. And as Mr. Obert noted, and I was going to talk about this anyway, it's been updated even more. And so I wanted to make you aware of some of the things that have been done just recently, and this is now something you're able to do on our website. A couple things. The first thing is to sign up for what's called e-Notify. And this is what are sometimes called web blasts. And this would allow you, if you sign up for this, you would get information sent directly to your email from the township regarding different kinds of things going on. You can go on the website, you can look for how to register, and you can register for any kind of information you want. If you want to be registered for some kind of township news, for example, the past winter we had different snow emergencies that were declared, and so that would be something that would be sent out, and your email would get that, letting you know that there's a snow emergency. If you live on a road where the cars need to be moved, you know that ahead of time through your email. Many people obviously get email on their phones, and so you'd be able to get that from your phones as well. But you can also receive information about park and recreation events coming up, that you'd be getting emails of the different events coming up, so you obviously get the information here or from other sources, but this would come right to your house. Emergency alerts, if for things that happen, the fire marshal or police department decide they need to send out emergency alerts about something, you'd get those. And you can select just one kind of email you want to get and you wouldn't get the others, you could select all of them. You could mix and match, and it's up to you. Ask you to make sure you follow the directions in terms of how to do this. Mr. Markey has laid it out for you, and follow the directions so that you're sure that these web blasts come through when they're supposed to. Mr. Markey has also set up Falls Township information on Twitter and Facebook. So that you can go on Facebook for those of you that like to do that. www.facebook, /Falls TWP. You can log on to that page, and you could also get information through that in terms of what's going on in the township news and information and schedules, as well as Twitter. For those of you that do Twitter, I don't do Twitter, but you could also get information through that would keep you updated on information in the township. And finally, but certainly not least, there are 2 connections on the website now to Public Works and to the police department. And in both situations, you can access these or send information to either Public Works or directly to the police department about issues that you feel are important. Maybe there is a traffic light or a street light that's out by you. Maybe there's something wrong with a street. You see that there's a crack in the road. You see some kind of problem. Public Works, for example, just a resident a few weeks ago told me about, in one of the wind and snowstorms, a tree that had fallen over, a branch had fallen off and was laying on some power lines that was actually on township property behind her home. And so that would be something she could have just gotten on the website and emailed that out, and that would go directly to Public Works. An easier way to get access to the township and make it work a little bit more efficiently for you. In terms of the police department, of course, if you have concerns about properties near you, if you're concerned about speeding on your road, people blowing through stop signs at a certain intersection, you can send that information into the police department. It's kept confidential. All of this is available now through the website, and so it's really a great thing, and I really commend Mr. Markey and Mr. Gray for all the hard work they've done to make this website even better than it was. It was a tremendous website before. It's gotten better, and so I thank them very much for all the work they've done. And again, thank Chief Wilcox and the rest of the police department for the presentation they did earlier. Thank Congressman Murphy for stopping by and for spending some time with us and giving out some congressional citations to those people who have done very courageous work to keep us safe and keep this township first in Bucks and first in Pennsylvania. And with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.